The Walking Dead, Rebuilding Home. Greetings, fellow multiversal adventurers. It's an honor to have you back in this saga that has us all hooked. Official channel statement: this story is 100% epic fiction. So please don't attempt real magic, the results aren't guaranteed and insurance won't cover it. The rights to this masterpiece belong entirely to its brilliant original author. We are just a barge sharing it with you. Do you want to keep being part of this amazing community? Join our ninja army of subscribers on YouTube and give this content a like. And for true fans, our Patreon has exclusive ninjutsu waiting for you. Chapter 1 descends upon the Walking Dead. Huh? An unfamiliar ceiling. Sheng blinked, threw off the covers, sat up, and looked around. What happened to me? Did I fall asleep while watching a show? He found himself in a luxuriously decorated but unfamiliar bedroom, the surroundings a mess. Clothes were scattered everywhere, untouched. A black handgun sat quietly on the bedside table, next to half a box of ammunition. This was a real gun. Staring at the brand new handgun, Sheng's mind went blank. He remembered. Last night, he had finished watching the finale of The Walking Dead, and thinking about the tragic deaths of the characters and the various idiotic actions of the brainless writers, he angrily slammed his fist on the table. Then, his favorite soda bottle tipped over, landing on the socket under the table, on his flip-flops. Then, the accident happened. He was electrocuted. Numbness, itching, pain. The intense pain quickly overwhelmed his consciousness. Huh? I think I'm dead? What terrible luck. As he pondered, Sheng's face paled, and his eyes twitched involuntarily. He was 38 years old, an only child, and had experienced several failed relationships. He hadn't found someone to marry, and after more than a decade of hard work, he had finally become a senior executive at a company, earning a comfortable salary of several $100,000 a year. Unfortunately, his parents had passed away early due to illness, and he had no siblings or relatives to share his success with. Thinking about it this way, apart from a few close friends and relatives, there wasn't much in this world that he truly cherished. Lost in thought, Sheng suddenly became absent-minded. Just then, a massive influx of information flooded his brain, accompanied by a tearing pain. A memory of a doctor named Lyon Caster flashed rapidly through his mind. Damn, it hurts so much. It felt like a hot iron had been inserted into his head. This pain lasted for more than 10 minutes. Sheng gritted his teeth and slowly stopped struggling. Who is messing with me? He opened his eyes, fine beads of sweat forming on his forehead. Damn, it hurts more than childbirth. Sheng raised his right hand to his eyes. Sure enough, it wasn't the arm he remembered. It had white skin, thick hair, strong muscles, and a diamond-encrusted Rolex watch on his wrist, sparkling brightly. The time on the watch showed 11 a.m. What a rich kid. That watch alone must cost tens of thousands of dollars, enough for 2 years of his salary. Through his memories and the information in his brain, Sheng confirmed that his current body belonged to Lyon Caster, 26 years old, a doctor in King County, Atlanta, Georgia. The current time was June 9, 2010, a month after the disaster began. Now, the whole world was overrun by zombies, countless people had died and mutated, and the streets were filled with those monsters. Speaking of which, Dr. Lyon was incredibly unlucky. His parents had perished in the early stages of the disaster, and after receiving the news, Lyon himself was overwhelmed with grief, drank heavily, and developed a low-grade fever. After resting at home for a few days, he tragically discovered that most of his neighbors had mutated into terrifying zombies. Even more tragically, Dr. Lyon lived on the 6th floor, the top floor of the building. There was no elevator, and to leave the apartment, one had to use the stairwell, which was already teeming with at least a dozen zombies. With all his loved ones gone and no hope of escape, the young doctor, unable to endure any longer, took a large dose of sleeping pills the previous night and ended his life in his sleep. Sheng got up and went to the bathroom. Looking at his handsome, standard white face in the mirror, he exhaled a sigh of relief. As a longtime fan of The Walking Dead, although he loved the show, the idea of willingly giving up his peaceful past to come to this tragic post-apocalyptic world was absolutely impossible. But, what's done is done, and no one can change it. Sigh, face it positively. Hey, friend, thank you for your body, Sheng murmured, trying to hypnotize himself. He patted his still pale, sickly face and said this to the mirror. Then, let me, as Lyon Caster, strive to live on. In this damn world, I will leave no regrets. As a transmigrator, Compared to ordinary people struggling to survive, he possessed his own trump card. Lyon closed his eyes, silently sensing the strange sensations within his body. Around his heart, a peculiar energy swirled, splitting off strands with each heartbeat, merging into his blood and circulating throughout his body. He didn't know what it was, only guessing it might be some kind of advanced energy. This was a gift from the world, granting his body greater resilience and explosive power, immunity to various toxins and germs, and gradually strengthening his body over time. Even if bitten by a zombie, he wouldn't be infected by the virus. Those terrifying zombies were more like hordes of hungry beasts to him. This ability, while incredibly powerful, was a secret that had to be kept. If it were leaked, it would undoubtedly bring him endless trouble. For him, humans and firearms were the most dangerous enemies. Adjusting his mindset, Lyon carefully searched his apartment. The supplies found were meager: a few bottles of beer, some drinking water, a few pieces of chocolate, a few slices of bread, and a Browning pistol with a box of 30 bullets. Lyon clicked his tongue. This meager rations wouldn't even fill a tooth gap. Clearly, as a single man, Mr. Lyon hadn't stockpiled many supplies, and most of his food had been nearly exhausted during his recent illness. Perhaps that was why the young man had chosen to commit suicide. Lyon sighed inwardly. It seemed he had to break out today, otherwise, without food, he would starve to death. He picked up the black Browning pistol, loaded the magazine, and examined it carefully. In the original owner's memories, this was a coming-of-age gift from his father. Mr. Lyon wasn't a skilled shooter. He had only attended a few shooting training courses and could barely avoid missing the target within 10 meters. However, this gentleman was ambitious. He didn't participate in decadent entertainments, preferring various competitive sports. Because of his long-term training, his physical abilities were more agile and stronger than the average person. In the current world, this was a huge advantage. Thankfully, it wasn't his original body. Otherwise, his unhealthy physique, where he'd be out of breath after just a few steps, would have made it incredibly difficult to survive in this world. Lyon shoved his pistol into his holster and, without hesitation, devoured all the remaining food, then downed 2 bottles of beer. This barely filled his stomach. The special energy within him, while making him stronger, also greatly increased his appetite. In a state of hunger, he couldn't exert his full fighting power and needed to eat more to satisfy his body's needs. After searching around, in the corner of the wardrobe, Lyon found a wooden baseball bat with his signature on it. He didn't know what kind of wood it was, but it was both lightweight and sturdy. He was delighted. This was a powerful melee weapon. You see, zombies in the Walking Dead world are extremely sensitive to sound. Using a pistol would easily attract other zombies, trapping him in a deadly situation. Melee weapons didn't have this problem. They conserved ammunition and didn't make much noise. Finding some nails and wire in the kitchen, Lyon, following a method from a movie, attached nails and wrapped them with wire, easily creating a deadly metal spiked club. He picked up the club, changed into athletic jeans and a sweatshirt, and practiced swinging it hundreds of times in the living room until he was confident he could face a zombie attack head-on. It was time. He had to fight the zombies. He'd think of it as hunting wild boar. Lyon took a deep breath. He didn't intend to charge directly into the horde of zombies in the stairwell. That was something only a fool would do. Although he wasn't afraid of the zombie virus, being bitten and bleeding excessively could still be life-threatening. Holding the spike club, Lyon held his breath, pressed his ear to the door, and listened carefully. He didn't hear anything strange. After confirming several times, he cautiously opened the door, pulling it slowly to avoid making too much noise. Once he was sure he wasn't being discovered, Lyon peeked out. Fortunately, the 6th floor corridor was completely empty. No zombies were wandering around. That makes sense. If there were zombies near the entrance, the original owner of this body, Mr. Lyon, wouldn't have had such a peaceful time. Letting out a soft breath, Lyon felt a sense of relief. If possible, no one wants to face danger directly. He crouched, not heading towards the stairs. King County was just a small county town, with a population probably less than 10,000. Most American families preferred to live in detached houses. Apartments like Lyon's were only popular with young people without families. He remembered that there were only 5 households per floor. Counting down the stairs, Lyon's was the second, and the total population of this floor shouldn't exceed 10 people. The third house on the right was his neighbor, an employee of a securities company, a middle-aged balding man named Bob, living alone. He wondered if Bob was still alive. After sneaking about 10 meters, Bob's door appeared before him. Lyon tried to push it, but it wouldn't budge. It must have been locked from the inside. Good luck to him. Lyon thought for a moment, then decided not to knock and continued forward. He didn't want to make any noise outside the door, lest he attract zombies from other areas. Hunger and weakness were still plaguing him, preventing him from exerting his normal strength. After stealthily moving about 10 meters, another open door appeared before him. Lyon recalled that a divorced single mother and daughter seemed to live here, but they had no connection, and he had even forgotten what they looked like. However, thinking about it, a door wide open like this meant either no one was home, or the person inside was already dead. He just didn't know if there were any zombies inside. Tightening his grip on his spiked club, Lyon crouched down and entered the room. The main content of this book is developing power, farming, and gathering survivors. The protagonist's strength is not very significant, and it is not an invincible story. Brothers, I'm a newbie writer. I hope you readers will support me and read the official version. Please. Chapter 2 Humanity's greatest enemy is fear. The moment he stepped into the room, a nauseating stench assaulted Lyon's nostrils. He glanced around but saw no one moving. Most of the furniture was neatly arranged. From the living room to the bedroom floor, there was a large black drag mark, swarming with flies. Damn, it stinks like swill. Lyon's brow furrowed. As a doctor, he knew this was the residue of dried blood. A tragedy must have occurred here. Gripping his weapon, Lyon didn't proceed. Instead, he turned and grabbed the doorknob, gently closing the door behind him. Better safe than sorry. This would prevent a zombie attack from behind. It was early June, and the outdoor temperature was generally above 26 degrees Celsius. The slightly warmer temperature caused the stench of rotting flesh to waft from the bedroom. Lyon didn't rush into the bedroom. He quietly stood up, checked the living room and kitchen, and only after confirming there was no danger did he press himself against the wall and approach the bedroom door. Following the trail of blood, he peered inside. The bedroom wasn't large. A wide dressing table stood beneath a window, flanked by two single beds, one large and one small. The walls were painted pink and adorned with various trendy cartoon images, creating a warm and charming atmosphere. A slender figure in a long red dress sat motionless before the dressing table, like a statue. Lyon couldn't see her face. Her long, pale blonde hair was tangled with black knots, and the smooth skin of her exposed back had an unhealthy pallor. Damn, her back view was quite beautiful, possessing a kind of incomplete beauty. Lyon, clinging to hope, held his breath and crept up behind her, raising a spiked club high. Seemingly sensing the movement behind her, the slender figure shifted her shoulders and slowly turned her face. Click click click. After a grinding sound of bones, a horrifying, half-rotten female face appeared before Lyon's eyes. On the wide dressing table before her lay a child's skeleton, gnawed clean. Lyon's heart skipped a beat. Without thinking, he mustered all his strength and swung his spiked club down hard on the woman's head. Thud. The club felt like hitting thick leather. The spikes pierced the skull, and a few drops of foul-smelling pus splattered from the rotting scalp. Lyon gritted his teeth, forcefully pulled out the club, and smashed it down again on the dented part of the woman's skull. Thud. The female zombie shuddered, slumped into the chair, and lay motionless. Having eliminated the enemy, Lyon remained vigilant. He took 2 steps back, gazing at the gruesome scene he would never see in peacetime, his heart pounding faster. Damn, this is terrifying. The difference between reality and the game is truly vast. However, after getting past this hurdle, his fear of zombies dissipated considerably. Next time, I'll definitely do better. After resting for a few minutes, Lyon closed his bedroom door and began collecting supplies. He was extremely hungry and desperately needed more energy. Perhaps the mother and daughter had perished earlier, or perhaps the single mother was more resourceful, but Lyon had collected quite a bit of food, some canned meat, some flour, and several packets of instant noodles. Unfortunately, the water and electricity were now cut off, and besides the canned food and flour, much of the vegetables and meat had rotted and was inedible. With the food he found, Lyon didn't choose to stay. He quietly sneaked back to his apartment, changed his clothes stained with rotting blood, and began preparing dinner. Hell, luckily the old man's mental fortitude was strong enough, otherwise, how could he possibly eat? Being a bachelor himself, Lyon now possessed considerable culinary skills. He didn't try to save money but instead used what was available, spending the better part of an hour preparing a large table full of food: beef soup, fried meat patties, and braised beef instant noodles, totaling about 4 or 3 pounds. Unexpectedly, on his very first day in this world, he became a glutton. Sipping wine and devouring food, Lyon felt his body sending signals of satisfaction, and he finally had time to consider his future plans. How would he survive in this world? What should he do? As a longtime fan of The Walking Dead, he remembered many plot points, but many things happened by chance, and his rash intervention would surely cause many accidents. If he didn't intervene, Lyon's precognitive advantage would be useless. This dilemma troubled him greatly. It was June 9th, a month since the disaster, and according to the timeline, the protagonist Rick would probably not awaken for another month. Wasting a month of his advantage would be a real shame. Lyon went over the early plot of The Walking Dead in his mind several times. What was the most important thing now? What would he do to gain a significant advantage in the future? After thinking for over 10 minutes, a place name gradually appeared in Lyon's mind: the Atlanta Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That was the institution in the region with the most advanced research on the zombie virus, possessing state-of-the-art equipment and top-tier talent. They persevered for over 2 months during the disaster, ultimately succumbing to exhaustion and self-destructing. When the protagonist group arrived, only one researcher, Dr. Jenner, remained. His wife, the supposedly brilliant female supervisor, had been accidentally infected, and humanity had essentially lost all hope of cracking the virus. Now, perhaps, there was still hope. It was a good place. Thinking of this, the previously ample time suddenly felt urgent. After eating and drinking his fill, Lyon rested for an hour, his internal energy circulating and restoring his weakened body to normal. Without clearing the remaining dishes, Lyon picked up his spike club, grabbed his car keys, and left his apartment. After today, he figured he would never return. Stepping out of his apartment, he walked 10 meters towards the hallway, stopping only in front of a tightly closed door. This was also Lyon's neighbor, Nick, a bank employee in his 30s. He was fairly familiar with the original owner of this body. In Lyon's memory, Nick was a mountaineering enthusiast, and his bedroom closet contained a climbing rope several tens of meters long. The original Lyon had also considered getting this rope to escape, but the closed door in his weakened state limited his plans. Drawing his Browning pistol from his belt, Lyon aimed the muzzle at the door lock, a sigh escaping his lips. Times have changed, kid. The rules of civilized society no longer apply. Bang! A loud gunshot rang in his ears, instantly piercing the brass lock. Smelling the gunpowder in the air, Lyon didn't dare delay. He yanked open the door and strode inside. Before he could even assess the situation, Lyon saw a somewhat familiar figure, swaying and trying to get up from the floor. Getting up from the floor, it must be a zombie. Without a second thought, Lyon quickly approached, stopping about a meter away from the man. He raised his hand, aimed at the head that now displayed a ferocious expression, and pulled the trigger. Thud! The corpse slumped to the ground, a yellowish-white substance oozing from its chin. Without time to waste, he strode past the body and headed straight for the open bedroom. Entering the bedroom, Lyon flung open the wardrobe door. As he expected, a set of red and yellow mountaineering equipment filled half the closet. A complete set: boots, hat, rope, jacket, and he even found a nearly new climbing axe. Time was of the essence. Lyon didn't have time to organize his gear. He had to leave before the zombies arrived. He grabbed the equipment and ran as fast as he could towards his apartment. Less than a minute after closing the door, a flurry of footsteps and howls echoed from the hallway. The zombies, seemingly unable to find their target, restlessly bumped around before resuming their aimless wandering. Lyon listened for a while, finding nothing amiss. He quietly sat back on the sofa, took off his jeans and boots, and changed into hiking boots, hiking pants, and hiking gloves. Compared to everyday clothes, this hiking gear was much more durable and more resistant. In some situations, it could even withstand zombie attacks. Although it would be hotter, what did that matter compared to his safety? Once he was ready, Lyon tightly tied one end of the climbing rope to a stone pillar in the living room and threw the other end out the window. He lived on the 6th floor of the apartment, about 20 meters from the road below. The climbing rope was long enough. There were no zombies near the road. Once he got back to the surface, he could drive away. Lyon sighed, walked to the window, grabbed the climbing rope, and climbed out. This wasn't easy. In both his lives, he had never learned to climb mountains, never used a climbing rope, and of course, He had never tried smashing a zombie's head with a spike club or shooting his prey through the skull with a pistol. There's a first time for everything, and today he did many things he'd never done before. Perhaps that's life. Many things don't give you time to prepare. When you encounter them, you have to grit your teeth, muster your courage, and push through. Lyon recalled scenes from other movies, gripped the climbing rope tightly with both hands, and twisted it into a slip knot with his feet, trying to slowly slide down. After a few attempts, he felt he had the knack, and after another 2 minutes of coordinated hand and foot movements, he finally controlled his descent. Slowly, 5th floor, 4th floor, 3rd floor, 2nd floor, Lyon's feet touched the ground, truly back on Earth. Phew, thank goodness I lived in the countryside as a child. I used to steal bird eggs and climb trees, otherwise it definitely wouldn't have been so easy to get down. Glancing at his apartment, Lyon didn't linger. He turned and walked across the road, found the sky blue Chevrolet sports car, inserted the key, and got in. A dozen seconds later, boom, boom, boom. With the roar of the sports car, Lyon made a sharp U-turn and headed towards the police station. It was already past 2 p.m. If he didn't do something before sunset, everything would become difficult after dark. Newbie seeking favorites and recommendations. Chapter 3. Sorry, Rick, these guns are mine. The road was very peaceful, with few zombies encountered. Lyon guessed that in the months since the disaster, the monsters on the road had likely been lured away by passing vehicles. They were very sensitive to sound. In the early stages of the disaster, the military's artillery fire in the major cities continuously attracted zombies from surrounding areas. Only those poor creatures trapped in buildings or small corners were still waiting for prey to come to them. After about 10 minutes of driving, the Kings County Police Station came into view. Looking at the tightly locked iron gate, Lyon realized with embarrassment that he didn't have a key to the police station. The protagonist, Rick, could freely bring people in and out of here because he was the Kings County Sheriff. The police station was his domain. What should I do? Go find Rick's house key? The armory in the police station, without a key, it would be difficult to open, right? Suddenly, a scene from a TV series flashed into Lyon's mind. That's it. The zombie-like sheriff. Lyon picked up his weapon and walked along the road next to the main building of the police station. After walking more than 200 meters, he saw the back of the police station. That was the back entrance of the police station, a basketball court enclosed by a metal mesh fence. Looking up, a figure in a police uniform was wandering aimlessly across the court. That was him. His name was also Lyon, wasn't it? What a coincidence. I whistled at the figure, the sharp sound immediately attracting its attention. Like a dog on a command, it turned, revealing its ugly, rotting face. Seeing Lyon, a living person, it felt an immense surge of power. The zombie policeman, using both hands and feet, limped towards Lyon. Whoosh! The metal mesh fence bulged outwards, the wall blocking the zombie's movement, rendering its efforts futile. However, these monsters hadn't abandoned this concept in their minds. The zombie policeman, mouth agape, hissed, his head pressed firmly against the metal mesh, his rotting flesh torn to shreds by the wire, ugly and grotesque. Lyon stepped a step away from the zombie, a wave of nausea washing over him. He drew a dagger from his belt, aimed the tip at the zombie's eye socket, and plunged it in. Thud. The dagger pierced most of the way in, the zombie stiffened, and immediately stopped moving, slumping limply against the metal mesh, its eyes lifeless. This time, facing the zombie, he felt no fear. Lyon slowly withdrew the dagger, wiped the blood and grime from the corpse before him, and casually tucked it back into his belt. He realized that once he found a way, these zombies became easy to deal with. After 10 minutes, Lyon used a hook to retrieve the key from the county police zombie's body through the metal mesh. After testing each key, he finally entered the police station through a side door. Even inside, he remained vigilant. Although in the TV series there were no zombies in police stations, who knew what might happen? Fortunately, the police station was very safe, and nothing unexpected occurred. After about an hour, Lyon carefully searched every room, and the results surprised and delighted him. Lyon found over a dozen different types of firearms, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and even bulletproof vests, riot gear, and other defensive equipment in the armory. What surprised him most was the presence of over a dozen sets of police radio communication equipment. In a world where communication was impossible, this equipment, capable of medium to long-range communication, was practically a godsend. "Hey, I really don't understand, he thought. Rick is sitting on a gold mine without even realizing it. In the original story, he just drove off in a beat-up car with a few old guns. Did he really think the apocalypse was a vacation? But it's all good now, it's all my doing. Don't worry, once I've established myself in Atlanta, I'll come back and give you a hand. The police station had its own independent water and electricity supply. Lyon took a long-awaited hot shower, changed into a spare police uniform left behind by someone, found some food in the communal kitchen, and made do with a meal. He finally got a proper rest. After his meal, Lyon inventoried the supplies while mentally planning tomorrow's operations. There were too many supplies here, his Chevrolet sports car simply couldn't hold them all. Waste is shameful. There seemed to be a prison van parked outside the police station, its body reinforced with bulletproof plates. Although it was a bit ugly, it was far more practical than the Chevrolet sports car in this situation. He'd look in the warehouse later, he should be able to find the key. Lyon thought haphazardly. After resting for a while, he searched for the key, drove the van, and moved the supplies, busily working until 8 o'clock in the evening before Lyon had finished all the preparations. He drove the prison van into the basketball court behind the police station, closed all the doors, and kept the car key close to his body. It was better to be cautious. After everything was finished, Lyon found the common room in the police station, covered himself with a blanket left by someone, and fell asleep. That night, he had many strange dreams. Some belonged to Sheng, some to Lyon Caster, and some were incomprehensible, bizarre and fantastical. The next morning, around 6 o'clock, Lyon woke up. The strange energy within him was indeed powerful. He felt his body had returned to its peak condition, full of energy and enthusiasm, and his strength and physique seemed to have increased slightly. This gave him a lot of confidence. The Atlanta CDC was about 80 kilometers away from King County. If the journey went smoothly, he could arrive by 2 o'clock in the afternoon if he set off now. Clutching a map he found in his office, Lyon was determined to leave immediately, the sooner the better. If he could successfully reach a consensus with the research members at the CDC, it would be a huge boost to his future. Hopefully, things would go smoothly. June 10, 2010, Atlanta CDC. Jenner, is there any sample left from number 18? Dr. Melfa Pascal frowned. The failures of experiments over the past few months had left her exhausted. What worried her even more was that after the military withdrawal, the CDC lost all logistical support, and official organizations subsequently lost contact one after another. They had lost all communication with the outside world. From that moment on, the researchers were filled with anxiety and unable to work. Some fled, some committed suicide, and within just half a month, only the husband and wife remained at their posts in the entire CDC. But now, even experimental samples couldn't be replenished. Dr. Jenner licked his lips, looked at his wife, and said in a slightly hoarse voice, "I'm sorry, Melfa, sample number 18 has been used up. We need new samples to continue the experiment, is that so?" Dr. Melfa brushed her long blonde hair behind her ear, responded, and said nothing more. As the research director of the CDC and the head of the Wildfire Project, she knew better than anyone that everything they were doing now was futile. The biggest problem for the CDC wasn't the sample issue. What they lacked was energy, a continuous supply. Even though the entire CDC was now in energy-saving mode, their power supply could only last for another month at most. This little bit of time was meaningless. Studying serum wasn't like washing clothes or cooking, it was a long and massive project, requiring years, 5, 10, even 20 years, before any results could be achieved. But was it even worthwhile? By then, how many humans will be left? Can any organization support the CDC for over a decade? Alice, we have failed. Melfa turned to look at her husband, a simple, somewhat dull, bookish man. But he was also the person who loved her most in the world. "What can I do to save you, Jenner?" Just then, a steady voice came through the headset connected to the door. "Hello, is anyone else here? This is Lyon Caster. I want to talk to you." "Don't worry, everyone, the author is a principled person. He will definitely study hard and won't abandon the project." Chapter 4: Humanity's Hope. Hearing the voice, Dr. Jenner was momentarily stunned. After the military and other researchers left, they hadn't heard anyone else's voice for a week, except for the couple. The voice in the headset didn't stop. "Hello, is anyone else here? This is Lyon Caster. I want to talk to you." Dr. Jenner gripped the headset but didn't answer. He looked up at his wife, somewhat bewildered, and asked, "Melfa, what should we do? Should we respond to him?" Dr. Melfa silently approached the monitor, bent down, and stared intently at the figure that had suddenly appeared on it. A man in his 20s, about 1.9 meters tall, strong, handsome, wearing police riot gear over a gray-green county sheriff's uniform. He held a modified baseball bat, covered in blood. Melfa's brow furrowed. She controlled the camera, scanning the square in front of the building. To her surprise, the 7 or 8 zombies that had been roaming the square had all been eliminated. Melfa hesitated for half a minute, then turned on his headset, lowered the volume, and spoke in a low, husky voice, "I am Melfa Pascal, Research Director at the Atlanta CDC, MR. Lyon Caster, may I ask what brings you here?" Separation line. Phew, finally a response. If there hadn't been, I would have had to force the door open after a while. Lyon felt a surge of relief. He raised his head, faced the camera, and spoke calmly, word by word, "Good afternoon, Dr. Melfa. This is Lyon Caster. I'm here to discuss some mutually beneficial collaboration." The female voice from the loudspeaker paused for a few seconds, then asked in a flat tone, "Collaboration? I'm sorry, Mr. Caster, I don't quite understand what you mean. This is one of the most professional germ research institutions in the United States. We don't have anything to collaborate with you personally." Lyon's expression remained unchanged, and he said firmly, "No, Dr. Melfa, I know very well that you desperately need help right now. The CDC's supplies are already severely depleted. How long can your food and electricity last, without outside help? Do you intend to stay inside and wait to die?" The voice from the loudspeaker fell silent for several seconds before speaking again. "Mr. Caster, how did you obtain this information?" Lyon shook his head. "That's not important, Dr. Melfa, but I can tell you something. On my way to Atlanta, I met a researcher who had escaped. He was bitten by a zombie. I don't know his name, but before he died, I learned this information from him." There was a moment of silence from the loudspeaker before it spoke again. "Take it as true, Mr. Caster, you should know the situation outside better than we do. The CDC does need a lot of supplies, and a stable, long-term supply, but, with your individual strength, it's basically impossible to accomplish that. Moreover, the CDC is a research institution. Even if we get enough supplies, we can't provide you with any assistance beyond pathogen research. As I said before, it seems we have no way to cooperate." Lyon chuckled, then his smile faded, and he said solemnly, "Indeed, given the current situation, you can't really help me much, but I know that the Atlanta CDC is probably one of the few remaining pathogen research institutions in the world. If we lose this place, humanity may never be able to defeat the zombie virus. I will do my utmost to establish a community in Atlanta, to gather together the good people struggling in this disaster. We will work together, support each other, defeat those damn zombies, rebuild our homes, and protect humanity's hope." Lyon's eyes were resolute as he stared at the camera, as if he could see the person on the other side through the lens. "Dr. Melfa, are you willing to believe me, become my partner? Are you willing to gamble for the future of humanity? This is also my goal." The female voice from the loudspeaker remained silent for nearly a minute before speaking hoarsely, "What a great idea, Mr. Lyon Caster, can't we just completely trust you like this? But, as you said, for the future of humanity, I'm willing to try." Click, 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 the armor door at the entrance slowly opened. "Come in, Mr. Caster, let's discuss the cooperation you mentioned in detail." Dr. Melfa was probably in her 40s, with an ordinary appearance and a serious expression. What was most striking were her deep, bright, light blue eyes. After Lyon entered the CDC, the shrewd and capable research director didn't hold back. She gave Lyon a very detailed introduction to the current situation of the base, including the stockpiles of supplies, various equipment and machinery, and the current progress of virus research. "So, what you urgently need right now is virus samples, and secondly, a large amount of diesel or gasoline for the generators." In the conference room, Lyon crossed his arms, leaned back in a leather chair, and asked with a serious expression, "Yes, currently, the base's power supply can last for about 30 days, and because of the deaths and escapes of many researchers, our food and daily necessities are relatively sufficient, enough to supply about 100 people for about 3 months, but the most important virus samples, we have completely exhausted. Without virus samples, all related research will come to a standstill." After saying that, Dr. Melfa tapped the table, her voice somewhat urgent. So, Mr. Caster, we need you to obtain new virus samples for us as soon as possible. Every minute of delay means a minute longer until the antibody serum is successfully produced. I know it's very dangerous outside, but Lyon shook his head indifferently and said sincerely, "It's all right, Dr. Melfa, that's exactly why I'm here. Don't worry about my safety. I've been living alone outside for a month and know how to protect myself. You just need to tell me how to obtain those samples." Hearing that Lyon had survived alone outside for a month, Melfa's expression softened slightly. Her tone warmed as she said, "Your abilities are admirable, Mr. Caster. We currently need 4 types of virus samples. These are blood and DNA from ordinary humans surviving in the outside environment, brain tissue and flesh from still active zombies, brain tissue and flesh from deceased zombies, and brain tissue and blood DNA from living people infected with a zombie virus." Lyon frowned, about to speak, when Dr. Melfa continued, "Of course, I don't insist on a 4th virus sample, but I hope that, if conditions permit, you can help us obtain it. It's crucial for our research on the zombie virus. The more hosts for each virus sample, the better, ideally, no fewer than 10 for any single type. These samples need to be replaced every 2 weeks. This is a long-term task. Today's task is simply to collect virus samples from those few recently deceased individuals in the plaza." Lyon nodded. This task was no challenge for him. "I'll collect those samples before dark. Now, let's discuss my options." Chapter 5 Agreement. The negotiations continued in the conference room. Control of the above-ground buildings. After listening to Lyon's proposal, Dr. Melfa raised an eyebrow and said, "As far as I know, the CDC's above-ground buildings are mainly exhibition halls, with an attached reception hall, an office area, an underground parking garage, and a public canteen for visitors. These are all common decorative buildings. What use are they at a time like this?" Lyon slightly shook his head, looking into the female doctor's eyes with a faint smile. "Don't underestimate them, Dr. Melfa. You've overlooked a crucial detail. The Atlanta CDC, as America's premier research institution, is a key national protected site. Not only its underground research facilities, but even the above-ground exhibition halls, underground parking lots, and public dining halls possess unparalleled protective measures. It's like a large military fortress. I observed it before entering. All the exterior glass of this building is made of advanced, high-strength bulletproof glass. Only heavy weapons like close-range high-explosive shells, tank shells, or rocket launchers can shatter it. Ordinary firearms are useless. While it may seem unprotected, there are only 2 actual entrances and exits, the main entrance to the exhibition hall and the underground parking lot, and both of these places are equipped with heavy bulletproof armor doors. Therefore, once the doors are closed, this is an impregnable fortress for those zombies who can only use their teeth." Lyon was pleasantly surprised by this. The situation here was even better than he had anticipated. Today, he not only rescued the brilliant researcher Dr. Melfa, but also found an incredibly sturdy fortress base. It was a dream start. "Do you intend for outsiders to live here?" Melfa bit her lower lip, squinting as she asked. "There are no individual rooms or beds on the ground. They're empty and unsuitable for ordinary people." Lyon waved his hand dismissively. "Doctor, I know the conditions up there are very basic, but compared to the constant threat of death in the wilderness, it's safe enough. It's connected to the water and electricity systems below, so we can use hot water and appliances. Just those 2 things make it feel like paradise. Besides, basic conditions don't matter. We humans, as long as we have hands, can create everything we need. In this world, what more could we ask for than a safe life?" Melfa lowered her head slightly, not immediately agreeing to Lyon's conditions. She remained silent for several seconds, her voice slightly hoarse, before saying, "There's something I was planning to tell you later, but since you're planning to set up the settlement here, I think you should know it now. Please speak, Dr. Melfa, I'm listening." Lyon thought for a moment and could roughly guess what Dr. Melfa was going to tell him. Melfa let out a breath, exchanged a glance with her silent husband, looked into Lyon's eyes, observing his expression, and spoke with some difficulty. "Mr. Caster, actually, after the zombie virus spread throughout the world, all of us humans were already infected by the virus. Some of us were killed by the virus in the very beginning, mutating into zombies. Some were eroded by the virus, their bodies gradually weakening, and then killed by the virus, mutating into zombies. The last group looked exactly the same as before. And the virus didn't affect their normal lives, But after they died, the virus immediately attacked their brains, turning them into zombies. All of us who are still alive are infected with a zombie virus. After Dr. Melfa finished speaking, the entire conference room fell silent. Dr. Jenner reached out and grasped his wife's hand, glancing at Lyon with some unease. Lyon's face remained expressionless. He picked up his coffee, took a sip, and said calmly, "Hell, I knew it was about this, really, just what I thought. You already knew." The Melfa couple were both very surprised. "Huh, I know more than you imagine." Lyon grinned and said, "You might not know, the outside world is more chaotic and more dangerous than you imagine. In the past month, I've seen countless dead people. Some died accidentally, some were killed by zombies, and some were killed by humans, but without exception, they all rose again. From that time on, I had a rough idea." Listening to the account, Dr. Melfa remained silent for several seconds before finally speaking again. "In that case, we can reach an agreement." Dr. Melfa's voice was solemn and serious. She stood up and extended her right hand to Lyon. "Mr. Lyon Caster, you have control of all buildings on the surface. You can share electricity, water, food, and all other resources with us. I will seriously consider any of your needs. However, you must ensure the normal operation of the CDC, guarantee our research progress, and meet any conditions required for our research experiments. This is not a cooperation based on profit. This is a commitment, for the hope of humanity." Lyon's expression turned serious. He stood up, extended his right hand, and shook hands with Dr. Melfa. "Thank you for your trust. I will do my best, for the hope of humanity." The next day, June 11th. After reaching an agreement with Dr. Melfa, Lyon felt a momentary loss of purpose. Although the CDC urgently needed diesel and gasoline for electricity production, it could actually last for about another month. This matter didn't seem as urgent as he had imagined, and it wasn't Lyon's primary goal. The most important task now wasn't that. After much thought, Lyon realized that recruiting talent was indeed the priority. He was currently alone, and whatever he did, he would be hesitant and timid. One person's efficiency was too low to handle large-scale projects. However, recruiting talent is no easy task. Based on his past life's knowledge and the original owner of this body's memories, Americans are extremely particular about human rights and freedoms, making them difficult to manage. They strike frequently and hold demonstrations every few days. They might even fight you to the death for these things. Therefore, managing talent is a skill. Everything is difficult at the beginning. How could a young man in his 20s possibly persuade others to submit to his management? He wasn't a high-ranking official, a king, or a president. He didn't have the right to rule others. Thinking about this, Lyon suddenly slapped himself. "Damn it, I'm going to rescue people, not beg them. Is it necessary to adopt such a humble posture? I've been a corporate slave for too long. I can't even stand up straight anymore." Things easily obtained are never cherished. For these kinds of things, people have to beg you for them to be willing. With this shift in thought, Lyon's inspiration immediately surged, and various good ideas flashed through his mind. He rushed into the ground base's office area and found a computer. He turned on the computer, typed, and copied, all in one smooth motion. Gradually, a pile of unusual post-apocalyptic job postings appeared in Lyon's hands. A smile played on his lips. A problem that had troubled him for so long was finally solved. Lyon decided to start his own business, become his own boss, and turn all the humans in this world into his employees, his pawns. He decided to control the survivors through the company, making them work with him to protect themselves and humanity. Since my name is Lyon Caster, then I might as well call my company the Umbrella Corporation, a protective umbrella for humanity. That doesn't sound bad. Chapter 6. The Umbrella Corporation is hiring. On the streets of Atlanta, abandoned cars were haphazardly parked, and groups of wandering zombies gathered, their ears perked up, claws bared, constantly watching for any movement on the road. Any hint of life would stir them. Garbage, corpses, wreckage, all sorts of things obstructed traffic, making the once wide roads treacherous. The closer to the city center, the worse this situation became. It was nearly impossible to find a road suitable for vehicles in the city. Driving a military truck he'd found outside the CDC, Lyon, a cigar dangling from his lips, gripped the steering wheel with one hand while the other constantly marked on a map. He didn't attempt to venture deeper into the city. The roads there were blocked and impassable. Instead, he chose to drive along the suburban Interstate 83, hugging the city's edge, avoiding the dangerous downtown. Lyon didn't drive fast. He meticulously recorded intelligence along the way. Where were the hordes of zombies? Where were the shops? Where might there be large stores of supplies? Where could they be used as outposts? This is a long-term project, not something that can be accomplished overnight. The future is long, and they will eventually explore this place and plunder its resources. But that's a matter for the future. Lyon's current targets are only two: the quarry on the southern outskirts of Atlanta and the St. John's retirement home on the southern edge of the city. Both places could potentially harbor survivors. The quarry is where Sean, Daryl, Rick's wife, and others are camped. The St. John's retirement home is where the group that kidnapped Glenn at the beginning of the story is located. The group at the retirement home should be relatively easy to find. They've been holding out there since the disaster began. As for the quarry, there's still a month before the story begins, and Lyon isn't sure if Sean and the others have already camped there. They might still be elsewhere. However, it doesn't matter. He's prepared to search both areas and see for himself what the actual situation is. The quarry is about 5 kilometers from the city center. Referring to the map in his hand, Lyon quickly arrived nearby. This was a small valley surrounded by trees, with flat land, a lake, and woods. Its secluded location, not far from the city, made it a perfect campsite. However, there were no buildings, no protection, and no natural defenses. If attacked by zombies, one would have to form a human defense line, which was extremely dangerous. Instead of rushing in, Lyon chose a hide in high ground and carefully surveyed the area from above. Near a lake surrounded by trees, he was pleasantly surprised to find traces of many cars and tents. Without a doubt, that was Sean and his group's camp. My luck is amazing. I found it so easily. Is this protagonist's luck? He thought. But it makes sense. Human survival depends on water. With most buildings without water and electricity, such a natural reservoir would be a priority for survivors. Having found his target, Lyon didn't hesitate. He returned to the truck and connected the radio to the nearest signal source. Performance time again. Come to think of it, I actually have some acting talent. I did a great job negotiating with Dr. Melfa. He cleared his throat, his tone relaxed, and said, "Hello, is anyone there? This is Lyon Caster, please respond." He called 3 times before there was any response. The radio was filled with static. After 7 or 8 seconds, a female voice responded excitedly, but it was hard to make out what she was saying. Then, after a few seconds, a deep male voice answered clearly, "Hello, this is Officer Sean Welsh, MR. Lyon Caster, can you hear me?" Lyon's lips curled slightly, his voice tinged with pleasure. "I can hear you perfectly well, officer." Sean's voice was excited to receive a response. "Yes, Mr. Caster, where are you now? Is it safe there?" "I'm safe now, Officer Sean," Lyon replied. "And I'm in Atlanta." There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the walkie-talkie, then a strange tone came through. "You're in Atlanta too?" "Yes, Officer Sean, our Umbrella Corporation's base is here." "Umbrella Corporation, what's that? You own a base?" "How?" "That's a good question, Officer Sean, but it's a bit complicated to explain," Lyon said. "You can think of it as a self-defense organization. Can we talk in person? I'm near the quarry." Sean's voice suddenly became wary. "You're here, how many of you are there, and what's your purpose?" Lyon chuckled and replied, "Don't worry, Officer Sean, it's just me. I contacted you via radio because I discovered your camp. Look towards 12 o'clock, about a kilometer to the north. See that camouflage truck under the big tree? That's my vehicle. I'm right there. Don't worry, I've come with good intentions and won't cause any trouble." In the distance, Lyon saw what appeared to be a small commotion at the camp. About 2 minutes later, Sean's deep voice came through the radio again. "MR. Lyon, please don't come over yet, we'll come find you ourselves." Lyon didn't mind. In this world, caution was always the best policy. "Okay, Officer Sean, I'll wait for you here." Seeing how agreeable Lyon was, the voice on the other end became much more amiable. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Lyon. Please wait a few minutes, we'll be right there." About 3 minutes later, Lyon saw 2 cars slowly moving towards his location from the quarry. They drove until they were about 50 meters from Lyon's camouflage truck before stopping. Sean got out first, a black shotgun in his hand. Behind him, 5 armed men also got out of the truck, surrounding him. Just as they got out, a clear male voice came from across the street. A tall, imposing man stepped out of the camouflage truck. "Hey, Officer Sean, we meet again. I'm Lyon Caster. Do you recognize me? Hearing the voice, Sean looked up and saw a somewhat familiar figure, his pupils contracting slightly. This man had striking short blonde hair, a strong and tall build, and wore a brand new, high-end black suit with a heavy military bulletproof jacket over it. He was very handsome, with deep, dark green eyes, and a seemingly always calm and confident smile on his face. A gleaming black fully automatic assault rifle was held across the man's chest. His camouflage combat belt subtly revealed pistols, magazines, fragmentation grenades, and other lightweight weapons. His well-equipped state exuded a formidable presence. Sean hesitated, asking uncertainly, Dr. Caster? Is that you? Lyon nodded, his smile unchanged. Yes, it's me. However, Officer Sean, I'm no longer a doctor. I'm now a manager at Umbrella Corporation. Behind Sean, a man in a leather jacket, with an aged appearance and a thug-like demeanor, asked, Umbrella Corporation? What's that? The military. Lyon recognized him, Mordixon, Daryl's brother. A scumbag, but also a good brother. How? The military. A mocking smile appeared on Lyon's handsome face. Based on his memory, he recognized all 6 people opposite him, former police officer Sean, the old thug Moore, the Korean-American deliveryman Glenn, the good-natured Dale, the black man T-shirt, and the good father Morales. He stared at Moore without any politeness, and said in a nonchalant tone, Sir, there's no army left. All the armies have been wiped out by the zombies. New York, Los Angeles, Washington, the town government, the military, the police, all the official organizations have failed. He paid no heed to the surprise of the 6 people opposite him, and continued, no one will come to our rescue. If we want to survive, we can only rely on ourselves. Impossible. You're talking nonsense. How could you possibly know this information? Morales suddenly interrupted, his face ashen. Hearing Lyon's words, he instinctively thought it was a lie. Just 2 weeks ago, I heard on the radio that the military had established refugee camps in Alabama. They had troops, food, and would take in refugees. It couldn't have failed so easily. Lyon shrugged indifferently and said, believe it or not, my reports are that 10 days ago, all 12 refugee camps deployed by the military across the United States were overrun by zombies. The command system was destroyed, large numbers of soldiers and civilians were massacred, and only a small number of survivors escaped. There are no troops left in the entire United States capable of directly confronting zombies. How is that possible? Morales' face went from ashen to pale, and he stood there listlessly, muttering to himself. The others were similarly distraught, their faces grim, huddled together, whispering about the news Lyon had brought, some believing, some doubting, some furious. Sean didn't join their discussion, he had already guessed this. His face darkened, his brow furrowed, and he growled impatiently, so what? You still haven't told me, what exactly is the Umbrella Corporation? Chapter 7 The first batch of employees. Atlanta, Quarry Camp. Lyon stood beside a camouflage truck, surrounded by a dozen survivors, each holding a job posting, listening to his speech with somewhat strange expressions. Our Umbrella Corporation was founded by top talents who survived the disaster. It's an organization created to eradicate the virus, protect humanity, and rebuild civilization. We have the most professional virus experts, the safest shelters, and the most suitable living environment for ordinary people. We have doctors, food, equipment, and a complete water and electricity system for daily life. But we are not a charity. We will not help survivors for free. Everyone must create sufficient value. We only accept valuable, capable warriors who are willing to dedicate themselves to all of humanity. Once you join our Umbrella Corporation and become one of us, not only you, but you and your family will receive the company's protection, live in our shelters, and enjoy a safe and stable life. In this apocalyptic world, this is the best choice. Listening to Lyon's speech, most of the surrounding survivors felt confused, depressed, and lost. After the news Lyon brought about the army and the town government spread, everyone's mind was shaken to varying degrees, whether they believed it or not. If even the most powerful official organization had been defeated by zombies, how could these helpless survivors possibly survive in this terrifying post-apocalyptic world? Lyon cleared his throat, pulled a recruitment brochure he had written from his pocket, and said, looking at its contents, take a look at the recruitment brochures you have. As stated above, all employees joining our Umbrella Corporation will be assigned to 3 different departments: security, engineering, and logistics. The security department is responsible for all of the company's combat missions, offering the best compensation, low entry requirements, and extremely high potential. We only recruit combat personnel who are willing to fight and sacrifice. The engineering department is our company's core department, responsible for all technical work. The entry requirements are high, and we only recruit truly skilled technical personnel. The logistics department is responsible for the normal operation of our umbrella corporation, with the lowest entry requirements and the highest potential. Anyone who is hardworking, loyal, and willing to contribute to the future of humanity can join. Each department's employees are divided into 5 levels, A, B, C, D, and E. Different employee levels will determine your salary and your position within the umbrella corporation. Each person's employee level is not fixed, it will increase according to your contributions to the organization. The higher the employee level, the better the benefits you will enjoy. As long as you contribute enough to the organization, you can even live a better life than before the disaster. This is the apocalypse. We are all survivors of this catastrophe, and we can no longer uphold the lofty ideals of equality, freedom, and peace. In this post-apocalyptic world, within our umbrella corporation, there is no racial discrimination, no distinction of birth or social status. Anyone, as long as you have the ability and the courage to fight, will be valued, of course, as a positive organization whose guiding principle is to protect all humanity. We will severely punish any behavior that violates basic human morality, firmly uphold the bottom line of being human, and safeguard everyone's fundamental rights as a human being. This long-winded speech left Lyon parched. Fortunately, as a high-ranking executive in his previous life, he was best at making grand promises. What the survivors lacked most was confidence in the future. The apocalypse had destroyed their beliefs. Just describe a bright future to them, and they would be willing to fight for it. I know this is a difficult choice, you don't entirely trust me, but think about it carefully. Even if you risk your lives to leave here and find other shelters, even if you overcome all obstacles and are rescued by the army, can you really live a better life than joining our umbrella corporation? Lyon looked at the survivors before him, who were shaken by his speech, and composed himself, folding the recruitment brochure in his hand and putting it in his pocket. Having painted a rosy picture, Lyon decided not to stir things up any further. He wanted to give these people some space to think, to let their ideas collide, so that they could reach a better outcome. I will stay until tomorrow morning, think it over carefully, want to take a gamble with me. Those who are interested, please contact me before I leave. After saying that, he left with a dashing smile and neatly climbed into his camouflage truck. Under the complex gazes of the survivors, he left the quarry camp. Lyon didn't go far. He drove to a flat woodland and stopped about 700 or 800 meters from the quarry camp. He then took out a table and chairs and a large insulated box from the back of the truck, placing them in a spot where both sides could vaguely see them. Plate after plate of various delicacies were laid out, canned goods, cold dishes, roast meat, and cold drinks, over a dozen plates in total. This was food he had prepared the night before. Since becoming a glutton, his craving for food had increased several times over. As a transmigrator, even in a zombie apocalypse, he wouldn't give up enjoyment if the opportunity presented itself. It was now early summer, and the weather was starting to get hot. Eating high-energy food and drinking iced drinks, Lyon felt increasingly relaxed and happy. He had already anticipated the outcome of this recruitment and wasn't worried. The survivors at the quarry camp were, after all, just a group of strangers who had only recently met, not as united as they would be when Rick arrived a month later. Some were independent families, some were brothers and sisters relying on each other, and some were just lone individuals huddled together for warmth. They weren't a unified whole, each had their own interests and demands. If what they received exceeded the bottom line, they would seek change. Lyon wasn't sure about the others, but at the very least, those without family ties, Glenn, T-Boy, Jim, would definitely prefer to join a group that didn't exclude outsiders and shared common interests. Only then would they be valued and wouldn't be easily abandoned. However, to Lyon's surprise, the first to make a decision weren't the people he had guessed. He had only eaten about 3/10 of his fill when a pair of young blonde sisters approached him. It was Andrea and Amy. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 finally got there. a metaphor for easily exploited investors, in the fold. Seeing the two sisters approach, Lyon didn't rise to greet them. He remained seated, flashing his signature smile, and said, "Ladies, have you made up your minds about coming to see me?" The blonde, blue-eyed Andrea glanced at her sister Amy and spoke first. "Mr. Caster, we haven't decided yet, but we'd like to know beforehand which department will be assigned to and what level of treatment we'll receive if we join Umbrella Corporation." Not bad. Two beautiful women like leeks, a metaphor for easily exploited individuals, coming along, living together would be more pleasing to the eye. Lyon's expression remained unchanged. Pretending not to recognize them, he smiled and said, "I'm sorry, ladies, I don't know your professions or names right now, so I can't make a judgment. Could you please introduce yourselves?" Andrea nodded, looking into Lyon's eyes, and said, "My name is Andrea Margreta. I graduated from the University of Chicago School of Law and am the managing attorney at the Margreta Law Firm in Atlanta. I have 10 years of trial experience, a lawyer, that's good, but unfortunately, in this post-apocalyptic world, the value of clerical workers has been cut in half at least." Lyon nodded. He could hear the hint of pride in Andrea's tone. In the United States, lawyers are divided into two types: trial lawyers who defend criminals in court, skilled in interpersonal relationships and possessing exceptional oratory abilities, and non-trial lawyers who are well versed in legal texts and adept at handling various legal disputes. Regardless, lawyers in the United States are considered the absolute elite. Only the smartest and most diligent individuals can obtain a lawyer's license. Ms. Andrea, based on your qualifications, I have two options for you to choose from. The first is to become an administrative staff member, handling various internal affairs for Umbrella Corporation, under the logistics department, with an initial rank of E. The second is to become a public relations staff member, recruiting employees for Umbrella Corporation, also under the logistics department, with an initial rank of D. Lyon smiled, adding somewhat teasingly, "Of course, you can also choose a third option, join the security department and become a glorious female warrior, with an initial rank of E." He then turned to Amy, smiling, and said, "Madam, it's your turn." Amy glanced at her sister, let out a soft sigh, and said, "I am Amy Margreta, a junior at the University of Chicago's School of Economics." After saying this, Amy tilted her head, thought for a moment, then lowered her head somewhat dejectedly, adding, "That's all." Lyon's expression remained unchanged, inwardly chuckling, and he politely said to the girl, "Miss Amy, I also have two options for you. The first is to join the logistics department as an administrative staff member, starting at level E. The second is to join the logistics department as my assistant, responsible for coordinating our supplies and assisting in management, starting at level D." Hearing this, Andrea glanced thoughtfully at Lyon, then at her sister, without speaking. Amy, her cheeks slightly flushed, looked into Lyon's deep, dark green eyes and softly asked, "Mr. Caster, why did you choose me as your assistant?" Lyon smiled faintly and replied in a businesslike manner, "Currently, Umbrella Corporation is in its initial stage, and all positions are severely understaffed. As a manager, I don't have that much time to manage supplies. Miss Amy, your admission to the University of Chicago's School of Economics proves you are a smart, diligent, and meticulous girl with a considerable talent for management and numbers. Currently, you are the most suitable candidate I've seen for this position." Lyon winked as he spoke. "Of course, you're very beautiful. Working with you will motivate me even more." Having flirted with a beautiful woman, Lyon was in a good mood. The three chatted for a while longer, and Angelia and Amy finally reached an agreement to join Lyon's company. "Mr. Caster, I've decided to join the logistics department as a public relations officer to recruit more talent for the company." Andrea's attitude was upright, with a confident smile on her face. She was confident in her eloquence, and being able to do what she was good at made her happy. "Mr. Caster, I've also decided to join the logistics department and become your assistant." The pretty Amy opened her mouth, wanting to say a few words of loyalty, but unfortunately, she was too inexperienced and didn't say anything. Finally, she muttered a sentence softly. "I will try my best to manage the supplies." Lyon smiled and nodded to the two, indicating that he appreciated their loyalty. Lyon stood up and took two more chairs from the back of the camouflage truck and handed them to the two women. "Since we're family now, let's have lunch together. You've been trapped here for so many days. It must be a long time since you've had food like this. This is a meal I cooked myself. Don't be shy, Eat as much as you want. The two beauties nodded, picked up their knives and forks, and began to eat voraciously. Americans never pretend to be polite. They had been eyeing the food on the table for a long time. For the past month, they had been hiding and hadn't had a proper meal. They were secretly happy to have such a good meal today. The three chatted and ate, and time flew by. After lunch, the two sisters didn't linger and immediately returned to the quarry camp to pack their luggage and drove the car to Lyon. Since they were now his leeks, a metaphor for his people, Lyon, adhering to the principle of making reasonable use of labor, arranged for the young beauty Amy to clear the dishes and organize the supplies in the back of the truck shortly after noon, while he himself took a stack of white paper and went to Angelia. Andrea, let's get to work. The PR staff will also be managing personnel transfers. Your first job is to help me create employee files. He handed Andrea a blank sheet of paper. Use this time to draft a file template. Age, height, gender, special skills, work experience, the more detailed the better, including you two sisters. All employees must have files. Also, use this time to draft a labor contract for our umbrella corporation. In the future, we will sign formal contracts with every employee. Andrea took the paper, stared at Lyon for several seconds, then smiled and nodded. Yes, boss. HMPH, a leak should have the awareness of a leak. I'm training your abilities for your own good. Lyon nodded without any remorse, preparing to find a place for an afternoon nap. Notify me when more people come for interviews. Chapter 9 Buying a horse's bones with 1,000 pieces of gold. That afternoon, things went very smoothly, just as Lyon had predicted. Perhaps the Andrea sisters had set a good example, because 4 more people came for interviews. T-Boy, a burly black man, Jim, a car mechanic, Quinn, a city planner, and Glenn, a Korean-American delivery man. Under Lyon's deliberate guidance and persuasion, T-Boy and Glenn joined the security department as A-level combatants. Jim joined the engineering department as an A-level technician responsible for car repairs, and while Quinn didn't have any particularly practical skills, she was a civil servant with over a decade of experience. Lyon, adhering to the principle of making the most of her abilities, placed her in the logistics department as an A-level administrative staff member, serving as Andrea's deputy. In the evening, Lyon took out a lot of food from the truck and generously invited everyone to dinner. After all, they would be a team from now on, and Lyon wanted a harmonious and united atmosphere. Enjoying the overt and covert flattery from his subordinates, Lyon felt secretly pleased. With T-Boy and Glenn as combatants, he was finally no longer a lone commander. With a wave of his hand, he gave T-Boy and Glenn each a pistol and a military bulletproof vest, earning them grateful looks. Loyalty increased by 10, haha, just like in a game. These were all salvaged from the fallen soldiers outside the CDC, cost-free junk, so distributing them was no big deal, perfect for winning hearts and minds. T-Boy and Glenn were the kind of characters willing to risk their lives for the team. In the original storyline, they both died to save the team. Gaining their loyalty would earn 2 sharp swords. That evening, Lyon brought out ice-cold beer and barbecue, hosting a small barbecue feast with his subordinates. Everyone chatted about their stories, enjoying themselves immensely, and their relationships deepened. In contrast to the lively atmosphere at Lyon's camp, the atmosphere at the quarry camp was very somber and complex. Everyone was preoccupied with their own thoughts, and there wasn't much communication at night. Each family whispered amongst themselves in their tents. The next morning, Amy readily assumed her role as his personal assistant, getting up early to prepare breakfast for Lyon. Before she could finish, Lyon saw the old thug, Moore, approaching him with his brother, Daryl. Lyon stood up, shook hands with the ingratiating Moore, and said with a smile, "Welcome, Mr. Moore, want to join our company? You and your brother look like seasoned veterans. If you join us, you'll definitely be given important responsibilities." Lyon's attitude was very friendly, giving off a sense of importance and respect. Having been in the corporate world for many years, he knew that low-level thugs like Moore needed respect and recognition most of all, recognition from the strong, of course. If you're incompetent, even if you respect and acknowledge them, they'll still think you're a coward. If you're stronger than them and willing to give them respect, then they'll be willing to obey you. Moore's smile widened. He chuckled, grasped Lyon's hand, and said, "Yes, boss, Daryl and I both hope to work under you. From now on, we'll do whatever you tell us to do, and we'll fight whoever you tell us to fight." Without a single complaint, Lyon laughed heartily, glanced at the silent Daryl, and then gestured for Amy to call her sister, Andrea. The Moore brothers were both formidable warriors, ranking among the top fighters in the entire Walking Dead world. Although both had noticeable weaknesses, with the right methods, they could both become formidable opponents. He hesitated for a few seconds, then smiled at the two men and said, Mr. Moore, Mr. Darrow, normally all combat personnel must start their promotion from Air Inc. However, considering that our company is currently in need of manpower, I have specially approved you two as D-rank personnel, temporarily serving as squad leaders of Combat Team Number 1. Mr. Darrow, as your vice captain, this is a very rare privilege. I hope you can make due contributions to the Umbrella Corporation. Moore was overjoyed, his face beaming. He patted his brother's shoulder and said loudly to Lyon, Thank you, boss. I will definitely not let you down. Darrow was also quite surprised. He hadn't expected that people like him and Moore would be given such important responsibilities. He looked into Lyon's eyes, nodded, and said softly, Thank you, boss. I will not let you down either. Having gained two powerful subordinates, Lyon was pleased. He handed them a good set of equipment and treated them to a good meal and drinks, gaining their favor. After seeing the two off, Andrea asked somewhat curiously, Mr. Caster, you seem to value them both very much? Of course, Darrow was someone who survived to the final season. Lyon nodded, not surprised by Andrea's question. Times have changed, Andrea. In this era, only those with sufficient strength can determine their own destiny. The Moore brothers have more potential than you think. They are more adapted to this environment than you are. After arranging things for the Moore brothers, time flew by. Just when Lyon thought no one else would come for an interview, Morales, with his wife and children, arrived late. Seeing 4 more leaks, a Chinese idiom for easily exploited people, Lyon was very happy and enthusiastically recruited the Morales family into the Umbrella Corporation, completely disregarding Morales's fierce opposition the day before, which made the good-natured Morales a little embarrassed. Morales was a professional plumber with over 20 years of experience and was recruited into the engineering department by Lyon. His family members were ordinary people with no special abilities and could only be assigned to the logistics department. By noon, after Lyon and his men had finished lunch, no one else came from the quarry camp. After the split, only 3 or 4 families, about 20 people, remained at the quarry. However, those who left, like Glenn, were among the bravest and most daring fighters. Their camp's fighting strength had decreased by at least half. Don't blame me, you didn't cherish the opportunity I gave you. He hoped Rick's family would still be alive when he woke up. Without hesitation, Lyon decisively led his 12 newly recruited subordinates away from the quarry and drove to the St. John's retirement home. Located in the southern suburbs of Atlanta, the retirement home was relatively remote, situated in a sparsely populated old neighborhood. This location allowed them to avoid a zombie's detection. Unlike Rick's experience, Lyon arrived at the retirement home with a group of heavily armed men. They easily entered into friendly negotiations with the survivors. They were all ordinary people trapped while visiting their elders, weak and helpless, and very willing to join the Umbrella Corporation, a safe and stable organization. However, a very real problem exists. The elderly in the nursing home are all over 80 years old, a burden with no ability to work. They not only contribute no value, but also consume a great deal of medical supplies due to illness. Without resolving this issue, a smooth handover will be difficult. Lyon had already considered this situation. He had to accept these seemingly useless elderly people because the team was newly established, and winning hearts and minds was paramount. The Chinese know the story of spending a fortune to buy a horse's bones. Taking in these elderly, weak, women, and children would increase the sense of security for all team members, making kind-hearted people feel a greater sense of belonging and identification. Although he might suffer a slight material loss, if he could gain everyone's goodwill, it would be a surefire win for Lyon. Besides, harvesting, a metaphor for exploiting people, is a skill. If the sickle is wielded well, the final outcome is uncertain. Facing the nursing home residents who eagerly awaited his decision, Lyon cleared his throat, gave a warm smile, and said loudly, "Please rest assured, everyone. Based on the principle of putting people first, Umbrella Corporation will take in these poor elderly people and cover 50% of their living and medical expenses in the future. We hope that everyone here will agree with our company's philosophy and dedicate their efforts to the revival of humanity." Chapter 10 Transformation. Having successfully recruited the survivors from the St. John's nursing home, The umbrella corporation's workforce expanded to 36. In the early stages of the venture, Lyon personally spent several hours interviewing everyone present. Of these 36, 12 were elderly people unable to work. 6 of them could still move around somewhat, while the remaining 6 relied on wheelchairs. Aside from the elderly, the remaining 24 consisted of 17 men and 7 women, ordinary people from the common world. Lyon managed to gather only 5 technicians, 2 nurses, a welder, a lathe operator, and a car mechanic, all fairly ordinary workers. However, the original leader, Aggie, proved more capable. He brought 6 young men willing to fight and joined the security department, bringing Lyon's force to double digits. The remaining 13 lacked both the courage and the skills to fight, so they were assigned to the logistics department, where they would face arduous and monotonous labor, but at least they were safe, weren't they? Lyon was quite satisfied with the result. If this were a gacha game, it would be like getting 36 free draws without spending a single penny. He got 1 blue card, the martial arts master Aggie, 5 green cards, the common technician individual, 13 white cards, the laborer, and, well, 12 black cards, the patient. Although there were no S-rank or SSR cards, the quantity was enough, essentially freebies. After finishing his personnel work, before Lyon could even rest, his beautiful assistant, Amy, came over with a notebook. "Boss, I've noticed a problem." Lyon smiled faintly. "What is it?" "We brought 5 trucks from the quarry, and Mr. Aggie and his group have 3. These 8 trucks can't possibly fit all 40 of us, not to mention the sick elderly who need the medical equipment here, which takes up a lot of space. We need more trucks." Lyon glanced at Amy with some surprise, not expecting the girl to think of this. "You're absolutely right, Ms. Amy. Thank you for reminding me." He pretended not to have thought of it and praised his assistant. Appropriate recognition will allow the leaks, a metaphor for easily exploited people, to thrive. "Could you please go and call Mr. Glenn and Mr. Aggie over, then you can count how many people here can drive trucks." "Yes, Mr. Caster." The pretty girl left with a smile. A few minutes later, Glenn and Aggie came to Lyon's side. "Boss, what are your orders?" Lyon greeted the 2 men warmly, saying, "Gentlemen, I have a task for you. You 2 are the most familiar with the terrain around here. Our team needs a large number of trucks. Please scout out the locations of the trucks in the vicinity and find any clear roads. No combat required, covert operation. You can observe from the rooftops of certain buildings, prioritizing your safety. Find at least 10 trucks. You can discuss the specific details yourselves. It's 2 p.m. now. Complete the task before dark. Is that all right?" Glenn and Aggie exchanged a glance, took a deep breath, and said, "Yes, boss, we'll get it done." Lyon nodded approvingly, took out 2 cigars from his pocket, tossed one to each of them, patted them on the shoulder, and said, "Very good. Keep up the good work. I'll record this achievement, and there will be corresponding rewards when we return to base. Accumulate merit, get promoted and receive a raise. I have high hopes for you too." Watching the 2 men leave, Lyon thought to himself, having capable subordinates is truly beneficial. It saves a lot of trouble. 5 minutes later, Miss Amy returned with a steaming cup of coffee and some pastries. "Boss, I've done the tallying. Of our 48 people, excluding the elderly and children, 30 can drive cars. 12 can drive large trucks, and the remaining 18 can drive smaller cars. I've also arranged for Miss Quinn to take inventory of all valuables in the nursing home, and the logistics staff will organize them before dinner. Car ownership in America is indeed quite high, and cars are cheap. Almost every adult can drive." Enjoying the coffee and pastries Amy brought, Lyon was quite satisfied. His assistant was smart and sensible. Even without his instructions, she knew what to do. "Very good, Miss Amy. Please inform the Moore brothers to bring their combat team to me." "Yes, sir." A moment later, Moore and Daryl arrived with 6 combat personnel. Moore remained quite enthusiastic, a smile on his face, and called out, "Boss, what can I do for you?" "Old Moore is always at your service." Daryl nodded somewhat reservedly to Lyon, without speaking. Lyon, with a gentle smile, handed each person a cigar. He smelled a hint of alcohol on Moore, guessing he'd had a few drinks earlier, but didn't say much, simply stating, "There's expected to be a battle tomorrow. Today I'll take you all to familiarize yourselves with how to fight these zombies. Go and gather your equipment at the back door in 10 minutes. The group was somewhat confused, but still responded in unison, "Yes, sir." 10 minutes later, Lyon, dressed in a leather jacket and pants suitable for exercise, met up with his weapons and combat team at the back door of the nursing home. He casually observed the area, then led everyone to the ruins of a construction site. The ruins weren't large, piled with rubble and stones, surrounded by high walls, making passage impossible, with over 30 zombies roaming around. Lyon nodded, finding the location suitable. He turned to his combat team and said, "You guys stay here and watch. Don't do anything. Watch how I deal with the zombies." 4 days had passed since he arrived in this world. He had gradually adapted to this apocalypse. No longer needing to worry about the zombie virus, he felt less fear towards these monsters, and more disgust and loathing. Under the watchful eyes of his fellow combatants, Lyon pulled a plush toy from his pocket and tossed it into a corner of the ruins. The toy landed, and cheerful children's music began to play. Jingle bells. Jingle bells. Jingle all the way. The 30-odd zombies on the ruins were involuntarily drawn to the music, their movements halting as they began to move towards the corner. Lyon stood still, pulled a silenced pistol from his waist, held it level in front of his eyes, and fired at the zombies' heads as he moved. Thud. 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 12 bullets blew the heads off 9 zombies. He calmly reloaded after emptying one magazine. Maintaining a distance of about 10 meters from the zombies, Lyon's accuracy was roughly 70%. Thud. 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 After 2 magazines were empty, more than a dozen zombies had fallen. Some zombies, having heard the commotion, turned to look at Lyon, their eyes seemingly blazing with ferocity and greed. Lyon remained expressionless, tucking his pistol into his waistband and pulling out a meter-long machete from his back. Watching the slowly approaching zombies, a strange energy flowed within Lyon's body. He unleashed a powerful horizontal slash, decapitating the 2 closest zombies, then used the momentum to cleave another zombie's head in 2 more blows. Having slain 3 zombies in succession, Lyon didn't rush forward. Instead, taking advantage of the zombies' difficulty in turning, he circled the horde halfway, finding 2 lone zombies on the outer edge and sniping them. Using the open terrain, the clumsy zombies couldn't even touch Lyon's clothes. After circling a few times, Lyon sniped 5 more zombies. After a barrage of kills with his pistol and machete, only 7 zombies remained out of the original 30, huddled together, still fearless and relentlessly chasing and biting Lyon. Lyon didn't continue fighting with his machete. He aimed briefly, then hurled it like a spear, piercing the brain of one of the monsters. After observing for a few seconds, he found a platform about a meter high, vaulted over it, and leaped up. On the platform, he calmly waited for the zombies to surround it. Without a foothold, these mindless monsters couldn't climb onto the platform. They huddled together desperately, stretching out their arms towards Lyon, grabbing haphazardly. Lyon, standing on the platform, took out his pistol, casually reloaded, and fired like a target, headshot after headshot, killing all the zombies. After the battle, Lyon leisurely lit a cigar and walked over to the combat team, who stared at him with looks of admiration, fear, and disbelief. His tone was nonchalant, as if he were merely brushing away a cloud of dust. "This is the first lesson. I'm telling you, these monsters aren't scary. They're slow, unintelligent, and only know how to bite with their teeth. Aside from their easily fatal virus, they're less effective than a wild dog. Don't be afraid of them. With the right methods, each of you can kill dozens, even hundreds, of these scum." Chapter 11 Disguise of Flesh and Blood. After delivering his first lesson, Lyon could clearly sense a change in the combat team's attitude towards him. Before, they might have only seen him as a boss, a leader, without truly trusting him. But after Lyon single-handedly slaughtered over 30 zombies, everyone saw him as a true powerhouse, someone they could rely on, and dared not question him any longer. Obeying the strong is human instinct, and those who rely on violence are more likely to submit to violence. "Come with me, watch how I do it." Lyon took several black raincoats, masks, gloves, towels, and a few wooden masks from one of his henchmen, all found in the nursing home. He led the group to the area with the most zombie corpses in the ruins, and under their astonished gazes, he put on the gloves and mask and used the machete to cut open a zombie's stomach. Zombies rely on hearing and sight to perceive their surroundings, but their senses have been damaged, and they are only interested in loud noises or fast-moving objects. As long as you move slowly like them and make no noise, you won't attract much attention. Zombies have a very sensitive sense of smell, Within 3 to 5 meters, they can easily distinguish between living people and zombies. Getting too close will alert them, but they can't distinguish the scent of their own kind. So, while teaching everyone about zombies, Lyon used a towel to penetrate the inside of a zombie corpse, absorbing its bodily fluids. These monsters, rotting for dozens of days, smelled incredibly foul and disgusting. Even with masks on, the stench was still unbearable. Fortunately, the original owner of this body, Dr. Lyon, had similar experiences in his memories, otherwise, he really wouldn't have been able to do this. Lyon evenly smeared the towel, soaked in the foul-smelling, reddish-black bodily fluids, onto a black onesie and mask. One corpse's fluids weren't enough, so he used another. Until all the fluids were used, the black onesie and mask became camouflage items covered in blackish red liquid. So, as long as we're completely covered in their scent, masking our own, moving as slowly as they do, and making no sound, they won't be able to tell us apart. That's the second lesson, camouflage. Lyon looked at the people around him, their faces pale from the stench, and said, to survive, to protect ourselves and our families, for the future of humanity, we cannot be afraid of any difficulties. Today, you stand here watching from afar, learning carefully. This is a very practical form of camouflage. In the future, it could very well save your lives and help you escape zombie attacks. The raincoat and mask smelled terrible. Lyon forced himself to wear them, completely encased, leaving no skin or flesh exposed except for his eyes. If it weren't for establishing authority and teaching his underlings how to use them, he wouldn't wear these stinky clothes. Damn. It stinks. When I get back to the nursing home, I'm going to take a good shower. I wish Amy could help me. Complaining inwardly, after getting dressed, Lyon slowly walked towards the street, approaching a group of about 5 zombies in the distance under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Hearing the noise, the zombies merely turned their heads slightly to glance at Lyon, then stood there blankly as if they hadn't noticed anything. This action made the combat team members in the distance jump in their chests. Damn, that startled me. Will I mess things up? Lyon's heart skipped a beat. This was his first time doing something like this, but thankfully, it went smoothly. The disguise was successful. After standing still for a few seconds, Lyon slowly moved to the side and behind one of the zombies, in a blind spot where the others weren't looking, and slowly pulled out a dagger. Choosing the right moment, he braced his left hand against the zombie's back, moved his right hand to the zombie's face, and stabbed it hard in the eye socket. Thud. The slight sound of flesh being cut was barely audible. They didn't howl. They became corpses without much fuss. Lyon gently laid the zombie bodies flat, making no sound. Then, he chose another zombie, slowly approached it, and repeated the process. In just a few minutes, he had killed all 5 zombies. Returning to the group, Lyon impatiently stripped off his smelly clothes and threw them on the ground. He paused for 2 minutes before addressing the group. See? Using this method, we can not only assassinate zombies, gather intelligence, and loot, but even, if done correctly, guide them from one place to another. Lyon looked at them with encouraging eyes and said, you were among the first to join the security department. As long as you are loyal enough and contribute sufficiently to the company, you have a high chance of becoming squad leaders, captains, or even department heads. I'm a generous boss. As long as you have the ability and are loyal enough, you will receive substantial rewards. After promising them a lucrative future, Lyon looked at Moore and Daryl, pointing to the other raincoats and masks on the ground, and said, Captain Moore, Vice Captain Daryl, as leaders of your combat teams, please demonstrate for your team members. Let your team members see your strength. Daryl glanced at his teammates, nodded to Lyon, took a deep breath, and silently drew a dagger from his waist, choosing a zombie to disembowel. Moore bowed slightly to Lyon, then turned to his team with a smug grin, scratching his crotch with a roguish air. You little bastards, he said menacingly, you've really got a good boss, willing to teach you survival skills step by step. Old Moore never had this kind of luck before. Thank God. If you ever dare to betray Mr. Lyon or do anything to harm him, Old Moore will definitely find you, kill you, rip out your guts, and torture you mercilessly. I mean what I say. Lyon was surprised, but meeting Moore's gaze, he nodded approvingly with a satisfied expression. I didn't expect the old scoundrel Moore to have such emotional intelligence. He'll play the bad guy and leave the fame and benefits to me. Not bad, not bad. I can increase the training. Maybe he can become a loyal vicious dog in the future, with his boss's approval. Moore smiled, found a zombie corpse, pulled a dagger from his pocket, and began skillfully dissecting the body. As it turns out, a ruthless person is still a ruthless person. The Dixon brothers didn't use raincoats, wearing gloves. They smeared the zombies' flesh and blood all over themselves and their clothes without batting an eye. Each wielding a dagger, they used stealth attacks, their seamless teamwork easily taking down 8 zombies. Ruthless, vicious, cruel to their enemies, and even more ruthless to themselves, the brothers' brutality successfully intimidated the other members of the team. There will be a battle tomorrow, and I will teach you the 3rd lesson then. Remember what I taught you today, and think carefully about how you will fight in the future. After the lesson, Lyon led his team back to the nursing home. He ignored everything else and immediately took a shower to wash away the stench of rotting corpses. Perhaps he would gradually get used to it, but right now, he couldn't stand the disgusting smell. Chapter 12 Mission. Day 2, June 13th. Glenn and Aggie completed their mission admirably, despite some minor hiccups, successfully marking the locations and routes of 13 trucks within a 2-kilometer radius. Lyon recruited Moore and Aggie, tasking them with leading 5 combat team members to steal the trucks. Before leaving, Lyon specifically kept Moore and Aggie behind, giving them detailed instructions. This truck theft mission isn't too complicated. You can work in pairs, cooperating with each other, using the camouflage techniques I taught you yesterday to quietly enter the truck and drive it away. Alternatively, you can use radios, players, car horns, etc., to create noise and lure away the zombies around the truck. There are 7 of you in total, enough manpower and enough firepower. Even in the most extreme circumstances, a direct assault will definitely not be a problem. Therefore, I have only one requirement for this mission: every member is a valuable asset to the company. Even if the mission suffers setbacks or supplies are damaged, it doesn't matter, but I don't want to hear any news of anyone's sacrifice. This will affect my evaluation of you two in your future promotions, understand? Yes, boss, I understand. Don't worry, boss. Old Moore will definitely follow your orders. Moore and Aggie nodded in agreement, carefully considering how to proceed. They both had their own ambitions and hoped to climb to higher positions in the apocalypse. Power is like poison, no one can resist it. Lyon nodded, thought for a few seconds, and added, "You can ask Jim or Alavine about the truck keys and the details of stealing the truck. They are both professional auto mechanics and can answer your questions. As for the guns, ammunition, and other supplies, you can go to Miss Amy. She will arrange everything for you. Go ahead. Start the mission after 8 o'clock. I'll look forward to your performance." After seeing Moore and Aggie off, Lyon was left with only himself, Glenn, T-Boy, and Daryl. Although there seemed to be fewer people, their combat strength was actually stronger, not to mention he himself was a human cheat code. In Lyon's temporary office, the 4 of them sat around a red square table, on which was a hand-drawn map of the southern suburbs of Atlanta. They enjoyed the delicate desserts that Miss Amy had brought while listening to Lyon explain the mission. Currently, the most scarce resources at the Umbrella Corporation base are gasoline and diesel, based on the intelligence provided by Mr. Glenn. After discussing it in detail with him, "We have identified this street." Lyon showed everyone a long and narrow commercial street near the edge of the city on the hand-drawn map. Wronggoing Avenue, from number 107 to 168, is over 150 meters long and 8 meters wide, with 3 intersections connecting to the interstate highway. All the buildings are 3-story stone shops, with almost no passageways between them. According to Mr. Glenn's intelligence, this 150-meter commercial street is designed to supply the white-collar apartment complex half a kilometer away. It includes a medium-sized Walmart department store, 2 competing gas stations, an international chain pharmacy, a car dealership, and about 50 other shops of various kinds. If we can find a way to block the roads at both ends of the street, preventing the zombies from freely entering and exiting, this commercial street will become a closed space. Once the zombies inside are eliminated, all the supplies here will become our spoils. Our vehicles can enter the area directly from the interstate highway and easily transport them away. TJ scratched his head, somewhat troubled, and asked, "But boss, how can we block off the street?" Lyon gave a confident smile and said, "That's the key point. Using ordinary methods, it would be difficult for us to quickly build barriers and block off an 8-meter wide street, but among the trucks we found, several are heavy trucks that are 9, 10, or even 11 meters long. If we modify the fenders under the trucks, drive them into the commercial street, and stretch them to their limit at the end of the street, with their rear ends pressed against the stone walls of the shops on both sides, We can form a metal wall over 4 meters high. This is the fastest and most effective method. After listening to Lyon's plan and considering it for a while, the group couldn't help but admire their boss's wisdom. Actually, it wasn't a particularly difficult plan to conceive. It was just that their imagination and preconceived notions from peacetime limited their creativity. I've already handed over the truck modification plan to Jim. Our mission this morning is to conduct an on-site investigation of the actual situation on Glory Avenue Commercial Street and how many zombies are inside. Glenn, T-Boy, go find Amy and get 2 cars. We'll set off now. Upon arriving at Glory Avenue Commercial Street, the situation was worse than Lyon had imagined. There were probably 300 to 400 zombies roaming the streets, and if you included the zombies inside the various shops and Walmart, the number was estimated to be over 500. Even if the entire combat team went into battle, each person would have to deal with more than 50 zombies. This was unrealistic, and they didn't have that much ammunition to expend. However, Lyon didn't show any worry on his face. He already had a plan in mind. Around 2 p.m., AG, along with a member of the logistics department, met up with Lyon here in 2 heavy trucks. A foul stench still lingered in the cabs, and red and black traces of flesh and blood could be seen in inconspicuous places. Lyon guessed that they had used the method of camouflage with flesh and blood. AG, how did your mission go? AG scratched his head, somewhat embarrassed, and replied, sorry, boss, for safety reasons, we were very cautious. Including these 2 trucks, we only brought back 6 in total. However, we were very careful with safety. No one was injured. Lyon nodded approvingly, secretly relieved. Every combatant was precious to him now. The death of even one would break his heart. That's good. Your mission isn't urgent. It's fine if you finish it tomorrow. Here's what we'll do. You drive a small car back and continue helping Moore. Dodge will stay here. His truck driving skills are the best among us. Remember to relay my words to Moore. After AG left, Lyon was left with only 4 people: Glenn, Daryl, T-Boy, and Adoki. 2 SSR cards, 1 3-star card, and 1 2-star card. He thought for a few seconds, but ultimately decided not to take them. The rare hero who hadn't been leveled up enough went on an adventure. He'd handle this dangerous early game mission himself. Getting bitten wouldn't matter anyway. Lyon climbed into the car and said to his men, I'll go and carry out the decoy mission. You guys protect Doge and help him seal off the area, clear the remaining zombies on the roads. If anything unexpected happens, prioritize your own safety and wait for me at the interstate highway. Chapter 13: Leading Away the Horde of Corpses. Glory Avenue, the commercial street. Lyon sat in a blue-gray Ford Mondeo, lighting a cigar. Since arriving in this world, he had almost become addicted to cigars. Their rich, aromatic flavor brought a sense of pleasure and transcendence with each puff. Before Lyon could even set off, Daryl approached again, saying softly, Boss, why don't you let me do this? If Moore knew I let you do something so dangerous, he'd laugh at me for a whole month. Lyon stared intently at Daryl's face for a moment. The young man was about his age, but beneath his stern and ruthless exterior lay a sincere heart. He patted Daryl on the shoulder and said sincerely, Next time, Daryl. You're not ready yet. Once you've truly adapted to this world, I'll rely on you even more. Daryl was silent for a few seconds, then nodded, looking into Lyon's eyes, and said, I understand, boss. Please let me go next time. The blue-gray Ford drove into the commercial street under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Driving along Glory Avenue, Lyon carefully observed the area, navigating around obstacles. The shops here were uniformly decorated in a refined and minimalist style, with transparent glass doors and windows, brightly colored walls and floors, and vibrant painted signs, perfect for the tastes of contemporary young people. Cafes, bubble tea shops, KFC, department stores, Apple product stores, the variety of shops was extensive and comprehensive. Many young zombies in suits and brightly colored clothing roamed the streets. Before the disaster, this must have been a bustling commercial center popular with young people. There must be plenty of good stuff, Lyon thought, and soon drove his car to number 108. Upon reaching the designated location, he quickly turned the car around, ramming 2 zombies that tried to surround him. With his right hand, he turned the car's music player to maximum volume and switched it to speaker mode. He had chosen this car beforehand. It had a built-in speaker, like the speakers used by middle-aged women doing square dancing. Suddenly, a classic Rolling Stones rock song, Paint It Black, blasted through the street. I see a red door and I want it painted black. No colors anymore, I want them to turn black. The loud music immediately awakened all the nearby zombies. They raised their ugly, rotting faces, swaying their bodies as they staggered towards the blue-gray Ford. Lyon didn't accelerate, he kept it in low gear, coasting intermittently, luring the zombies to follow him slowly. He honked the horn every now and then, and soon a huge, dark horde of zombies formed behind the blue-gray Ford. Lyon led them past the interstate highway intersection, past a gas station, past Walmart, past 168 Glory Avenue. A dozen minutes later, the Ford had traveled 3 or 4 kilometers, and 50 meters behind it, a massive horde of nearly 1,000 zombies had formed. They bared their teeth and claws, howled wildly, and huddled together, almost filling the entire street. Lyon drove while observing the surroundings, adjusting the car's direction. He took a pre-prepared rock from the passenger seat and gently pressed it against the accelerator. He then opened the car door, rolled out, and jumped out. The driverless vehicle continued its slow progress, leading the horde of zombies, seemingly destined to stop somewhere. This was a technique he'd learned from Old Moore in the TV series. He dared not linger, immediately rushing towards a house with an open door after getting out. As soon as he entered, 2 screams echoed from the living room. 2 zombies dressed in casual clothes had spotted him. Without hesitation, Lyon pulled out a silenced pistol from his waist. Thud, 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 thud. Moving along, he fired 4 or 5 bullets into the zombies' heads, exploding them to the ground. Reaching the back of the house quickly, Lyon discovered, to his dismay, that the house had no back door, preventing him from leaving. Fortunately, they had large sliding windows. Without a second thought, Lyon unlatched the window, crouched low, and climbed out. Finally, he was completely out of the zombies' sight. Lyon secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He avoided the possible routes the zombie horde might take and headed towards Glory Avenue from another street. The 3 or 4 kilometers he covered on foot, having to evade the zombies and avoid large groups, involved hiding and fighting. It took nearly an hour for Lyon to return to the vicinity of 168 Glory Avenue. Lyon personally experienced how dangerous it was for an ordinary person to survive in this world. Even someone with his unique abilities and near-peak physical fitness felt exhausted after traveling such a long distance. His clothes were covered in blood and bits of flesh. He found the road blocked by a red heavy truck, with a dozen zombies frantically scratching and pounding at its metal exterior, unable to harm it in the slightest. It seemed Glenn and the others had completed their mission. Lyon thought for a moment and decided to play it safe, avoiding a direct confrontation with the zombie horde. The truck, over 4 meters high, would be difficult to climb without tools. After running for over an hour, he finally returned to Glory Avenue Commercial Street from the intersection of the interstate highway. Entering the street, the battle between Daryl and his group was still ongoing. Daryl, Glenn, and T-Boy, all wearing protective police riot gear and wielding half-meter-long machetes, formed a simple defensive formation, coordinating their movements, advancing and retreating, fighting 7 or 8 zombies. Dozens of zombie corpses lay scattered on the street, clearly their spoils. Approaching them silently, Lyon launched an attack from the side, drawing his silenced pistol, emptying a magazine, and ending the fight. With the battle over, Daryl, Glenn, and T-Boy all breathed a sigh of relief. Glenn, being more outgoing, shook his arm, which was numb from exertion, his eyes shining as he looked at Lyon, covered in blood, with admiration. "Amazing, boss. You lured away hundreds of zombies with just one car. Perhaps we can use this method to lure away all the zombies in the city." Lyon took a few cigars from his back pocket, tossed them to everyone, lit one for himself, and shook his head slightly. "It's not that simple, Glenn. Zombies are attracted by sound and tend to swarm, drawn away by noise, but similarly, if we make even a slightly louder sound, they'll gradually be drawn back." Atlanta's local population is over 500,000, and with residents from the surrounding areas and the city's transient population, the number of zombies in the city center is estimated to be over 1 million. If we fail to kill these zombies and instead choose to lure them away, letting them roam around us, one day, we'll be surrounded and killed by 1 million zombies here. Chapter 14 Large-Scale Zero-Yuan Purchase. June 15, Rongwang Avenue Commercial Street. After a day and a half of continuous sweeping operations starting on the afternoon of June 13, not a single living zombie could be found on Rongwang Avenue Commercial Street. All shops were thoroughly cleaned, ensuring nothing was missed. This once bustling commercial street, teeming with activity before the disaster, was now strangely lively again. Wow, an LV bag? I couldn't afford one even after saving for half a year before the disaster, haha, and there's a limited edition one, I'm taking it, yay, an iPhone 4S. I've always wanted one. I heard the base has electricity, right? Haha, I'm taking 5, wow, such a big gold chain, and Nucky sneakers, diamond watches. This is our popular 3 pieces of wealth set. I'm going to collect several sets, cigarettes. 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 I'm going to collect lots of cigarettes, good idea. I'm going to fill a whole cart with red wine. Inside Walmart, over 30 men and women, their faces beaming with excitement and satisfaction, pushed a shopping cart, selecting items they liked and needed from different stalls. Morale as 2 children rushed into the snack section immediately, grabbing many expensive and hard-to-find snacks before the disaster. They sat on the floor and began to gorge themselves. They didn't have to work and had plenty of time to enjoy themselves. To avoid affecting transportation, the zombie corpses had all been moved out, leaving only traces of dried blood on the floor. This was Lyon's reward for their hard work these past few days and for joining the Umbrella Corporation. After this mission, everyone would receive a brand new car and the right to choose any goods they wanted until the car was full. Some chose luxury items like clothing, some chose necessities like cigarettes, alcohol, and food, and some far-sighted individuals took a whole carload of various medicines. Everyone was very excited. They were all ordinary people who had never had such an opportunity to splurge so freely. Perhaps this was the only good thing about the apocalypse. Many valuable things had become ownerless, and if you had the ability and luck, you could get them. At the intersection of the interstate highway, Amy, wearing tight-fitting ripped jeans, a white tank top, and a red vest, stood beside Lyon, who was leaning against a sports car smoking a cigar, holding a notebook. She reported softly, Mr. Caster, there are 58 shops on this street. There are 8 restaurants, 12 clothing stores, 6 beverage shops, 8 lifestyle goods stores, 15 professional tool and supply stores, and 49 small shops. The remaining 9 are large shops, 2 gas stations, an international chain pharmacy, a car dealership, a car repair shop, a large building material store, a medium-sized clinic, a shooting range, and a Walmart. Which items should we choose to move? Since yesterday morning, she, her sister Andrea, and Miss Quinn had spent a full day and a half meticulously inventorying every shop and every item on Glory Avenue's commercial street. The process was extremely time-consuming and exhausting, but none of the 3 women felt tired. On the contrary, they were full of energy. Such a vast quantity and variety of supplies was an astonishing fortune, even before a disaster. They could already imagine how wealthy their future would be. Amy smiled, her eyes shining, looking at Lyon with admiration. His handsome face always wore a serene smile. And his deep green eyes were unfathomable, like a captivating abyss. Lyon gave his assistant a strange look, his tone carrying an air of lecture. Of course, we're taking everything. Think about it, everything here is essential to our lives. Even the luxuries bring our employees joy and satisfaction. These are disaster times. Such a complete range of supplies is hard to find, and opportunities for you to search safely are even rarer. This is all Umbrella Corporation's property. How can we waste it? Amy lowered her head, feeling somewhat ashamed. She timidly replied, I understand, Mr. Caster. She paused for a few seconds, a hint of grievance in her voice, before continuing, Mr. Caster, what are your instructions regarding the personnel relocation? Lyon stroked his stubble-covered chin, considered for a few seconds, and asked, how much gasoline and diesel is left at the gas station? How much have we loaded onto the trucks? Amy flipped through her notebook and said, the first batch has been loaded, Mr. Caster, but this is a bit troublesome. We only found 2 tanker trucks and 32 oil drums at the gas station. Each tanker truck can carry about 4.5 tons of gasoline, and 1 ton of gasoline requires 8 drums to fill. That means we can only transport a maximum of 17 tons of gasoline the first time, and only 9 tons the second time. However, the 2 gas stations have about 50 tons of gasoline in stock. We'll need about 5 trips to transport it all. Lyon glanced at his Rolex. It was 1 p.m. Glory Avenue is about an hour and a half drive from the Atlanta CDC, a round trip taking about 3 hours. Including loading and unloading time, a trip would take at least 5 hours. It was summer, and the sun would set around 7 p.m., meaning he didn't have much time left today. Here's what we'll do. Go urge them to hurry up with loading. My promise is valid anytime. They can even select supplies after returning to base. Remember to arrange for your sister and Miss Quinn to coordinate the transport work here. You have to leave with me this afternoon. We'll go back to base first. You'll be needed there to arrange work. This transfer mission will probably last a week, but we must speed things up. Otherwise zombies from other places will be attracted by the commotion here, causing us a lot of trouble. We currently have 11 trucks. We need to fill them up and leave before 3 p.m. Go. Hurry up, and call Moore over to see me while you're at it. Amy sighed softly, thinking about the truckload of treasures she had acquired, and her tired body was suddenly filled with renewed energy. Lyon leaned against the sports car, watching the beautiful young woman's slender figure gradually disappear, his thoughts returning to his mind. He felt a mix of joy and, more than anything, worry. Currently, the Umbrella Corporation has 35 employees, excluding Dr. Jenner and Dr. Melfa, as well as the seriously ill elderly. Of these, only 33 are truly capable of working, excluding Morales' 2 children. With such a small workforce, responsible for security, transportation, moving, driving, and all sorts of other tasks, there are simply too few leaks, a metaphor for easily exploited individuals. How can this limited labor force allow the boss to live a happy and fulfilling life? Just thinking about returning to the base and having to divide this small group into 2 groups to load, move, dismantle, and modify the base, allocate housing, and clear out the surrounding zombies, a mountain of work. Damn, it makes his scalp tingle. But finding survivors in the apocalypse is incredibly difficult. Recalling the events he'd witnessed, the few places he could think of where people lived were Hilltop, the Governor's District, Maggie's Farm, Alexandria, the Kingdom of God, and the Salvation Army's Salvation Hall, among others. Most of these places were unknown, and many hadn't even formed or existed yet. Finding them wouldn't be an easy task. Currently, his only source of slight confidence was Maggie's farm. He knew their approximate location, and once he found their village, he was highly likely to be able to persuade Herschel. Oh, right. There's also Terminal Station, Morgan, Rick, and Sean. Before he could continue thinking, he saw Moore walking towards him with a smile. This old scoundrel had indeed been having a very happy time lately. Although the damn world had turned into an apocalypse, it didn't make much difference to him. Before, he felt like he was living in hell. Now, he had found a powerful boss who valued him, a group of capable henchmen, and was respected by everyone. His brother Daryl was also doing well, and he could clearly see that as long as he was loyal and capable enough, a brighter future and a hopeful life were just around the corner. This was much happier than the lowly, despised life of a thug before the apocalypse. Thinking of all the fine wine and cigarettes loaded into the car, things he had never even dared to dream of before, he looked at his boss, Lyon, not far away, and a fawning smile involuntarily appeared on his face. Boss, why did you call old Moore over? What are your orders? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Base. Boss, what are your orders for calling old Moore over? Lyon tossed Moore a cigar and said, I'll be taking the convoy back to base after 3 p.m. this afternoon, and I won't be coming back for the next few days. I'm leaving the entire combat team to you, but you must guarantee the safety of everyone here. Can you do that? Moore took the cigar, smelled it, but didn't light it. Instead, he put it in his pocket and patted his chest, assuring Lyon, no problem, boss. I guarantee you, I'll bring everyone back safely. Lyon nodded and added, you know the location of the base, right? Atlanta CDC, about an hour and a half's drive from here. You also need to send a team to protect us on the way to transport supplies, to prevent any fools from ambushing us. Our enemies aren't just zombies. You should know that some people have no bottom line. Yes, boss, don't worry, I'll arrange it. Separation line. At 3 p.m., Lyon led the way in a blue SUV, followed by a long line of 11 large trucks and 2 tanker trucks carrying over 100 tons of various supplies. Led by Lyon, the group arrived safely at the perimeter of the Atlanta CDC Plaza along the interstate highway. Upon arrival, Lyon didn't immediately get out of the car but instead cautiously circled the CDC. Finding no large horde of zombies, He easily dispatched two that were likely wandering aimlessly before returning to the CDC's metal gates. The driver, porters, his assistant Amy, and a dozen or so Umbrella Corporation employees were waiting for him. They all wore expressions of disappointment, believing the Umbrella Corporation base wasn't as secure as Lyon had claimed, but intimidated by his prestige, no one dared to say anything. Without high walls, thick armor, machine guns, or a large workforce, how could these glass structures possibly defend against zombies that had even defeated armies? Lyon didn't waste any words, but directly pulled out a silenced pistol from his belt, fired a magazine at the glass not far away, and the porters and drivers involuntarily shrank back in fright. Watching the bullets ricochet off without leaving a mark on the bulletproof glass, Lyon shrugged at the crowd and said, "Don't worry, everyone, this is a real fortress. There are no artillery or tanks, and no one can truly harm you. There's also a complete water and electricity system here. You can live a civilized, modern life. Of course, if anyone is still not satisfied with this environment, I don't mind excluding them and letting them live the life they want." After saying this, Lyon ignored the others. He glanced at his assistant, Amy, and said to the sensor on the metal gate, "Red Queen, open the gate." "Yes, master," a clear female voice replied. Having gained control of the above-ground structure, Lyon modified the intelligence system to his preferred mode. Since it was the Umbrella Corporation, the intelligence system should be named Red Queen. Unfortunately, this intelligence system wasn't as intelligent as imagined. It could only perform simple voice recognition control and couldn't be equipped with more advanced capabilities. Beep. Click. 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 The metal roller shutter quickly rolled up, revealing glass sliding doors inside. Through these two glass doors, a spacious and bright modern reception room could be seen further inside. "Come in, follow me. I'll show you around the base. This is where you'll be living for a long time to come." Lyon waved to the group, and Amy obediently followed half a step behind him, looking ready to receive orders at any moment. The CDC's above-ground buildings were roughly divided into three parts: a visitor area, a staff area, and an underground parking garage. The visitor area included an exhibition hall and a reception center. This was a large, modern landmark building, covering 3,000 square meters and about 40 meters high, with a beautiful design and high visual appeal. Its exterior walls used a steel concrete composite structure, mostly composed of a large steel frame and hundreds of large bulletproof glass panels, forming a transparent facade. The interior had 4 floors. The first floor was the reception center, and the upper 3 floors were the exhibition hall. The exhibition inside displays the entire history of this disease control center, its achievements at various stages, and the contributions of numerous renowned medical and biological experts to the world, a diverse array, but mostly rather ordinary, superficial displays. The staff area, comprising offices and living quarters, is a fairly typical rectangular 3-story office building, approximately 2,000 square meters in size. The first floor is the living area, featuring a large restaurant, a huge visitor activity room, restrooms, a bathhouse, a smoking room, and storage facilities, functional buildings for daily life. The second floor is a clerical office area consisting of a dozen private offices and 4 large offices. The third floor is for receiving important guests, with meeting rooms, a screening room, private lounges, and a recreation room, luxuriously decorated, Lyon's future private space. The first 2 areas combined occupy nearly 6,000 square meters, but the actual usable area totals a staggering 15,000 square meters. However, the largest of the 3 areas is not the first 2, but the underground parking garage. For some unknown reason, the disease control center's parking garage is enormous, with each level quite high, totaling 4 levels. The building boasts a height of 8 meters and covers an area of 5,000 square meters, with a total actual area exceeding 20,000 square meters. Perhaps due to the fact that all staff had fled after the disaster, only 20 or 30 cars were parked here, making the already vast environment seem even more desolate. However, whatever the reason, Lyon, as the host, was naturally pleasantly surprised to have such a large and safe environment. After giving everyone a brief tour of the base, Lyon and his group arrived at the first level of the underground parking garage. This level connected to the external exit of the parking garage was a large protective metal door composed of 3 thick bulletproof steel plates, 6 meters high and 10 meters wide, allowing various types of vehicles to enter and exit. He instructed the dozen or so drivers and logistics personnel, The basement level has been cleared out and will be used as our warehouse. You can drive your trucks in now. Today's task is to transfer all the supplies from the trucks here. Miss Amy will be in charge of planning the layout." He then turned to Amy, who was beside him, and said, "Miss Amy, you'll be responsible for planning the warehouse layout. Classify each type of material as meticulously as possible, and leave enough space for passageways. Soon, we'll renovate this place, build a wall, and transform it into a professional warehouse." Lyon glanced at his Rolex. It was already 5 p.m. He patted Amy on the shoulder and said, "I have some things to take care of, so I'll leave now. After 8 p.m., bring them to the first floor dining room. If there's any emergency, every monitor here is connected to the Red Queen AI. Just call out Red Queen's name to them, and they'll be able to contact me. That's all for now. I'm off." 10 minutes later, Lyon arrived at the entrance of the underground research facility, carrying a huge backpack filled with an astonishing number of glass test tubes. He met Dr. Melfa and Dr. Jenner. The two doctors, their faces beaming with surprise, exchanged a few pleasantries with Lyon, and the three went into the conference room. Lyon pushed the backpack towards Dr. Melfa. "Doctor, these are the virus samples you needed. I collected blood samples from over 40 humans and samples from over 50 zombies of varying stages, all clearly marked. That should be enough for you for a while." Melfa nodded, pulled the backpack to his side, and instead of immediately inspecting it, asked Lyon, "How was your 4-day expedition? I saw you brought back 15 people and over a dozen truckloads of supplies. You must have had a good haul." Lyon nodded, thought for a few seconds, and said somewhat casually, "It was alright, but the survivors were quite few. I only managed to gather about 40 people, and there are still thousands of tons of supplies waiting to be transported back." "What, thousands of tons of supplies? Did you empty several small towns?" Chapter 16. Two pieces of good news. Lyon recounted his experiences over the past few days and his plans for the near future to the two doctors. Of course, he couldn't claim to be a prophet, born knowing the locations of the two survivor camps. Instead, he vaguely explained that he had encountered members of both camps before entering the CDC. The two doctors were both shocked and impressed. During the time the military was helping defend the CDC, they had witnessed firsthand the terror of the zombies, hordes of them, fearless and relentless, bullets almost ineffective against them unless their brains were destroyed. As a result, the American soldiers, caught off guard and without time to equip themselves with heavy weapons, were quickly overwhelmed by the swarms of zombies. Panic and fear destroyed their reason, and they fled in disarray, abandoning humanity's hope of defeating the zombie virus. This man, however, had traversed hundreds of kilometers in just 4 days, gathering over 40 survivors in a zombie-infested city and seizing nearly 1,000 tons of supplies. It was nothing short of a miracle. Melfa's eyes flickered, and even her usually serious and cold expression softened slightly. She thought for a few seconds, then said, "Lyon, if you want to modify the ground buildings, you'll definitely need a lot of building materials. I know a location, in an industrial area about 2 kilometers from here, where there's a small metal building materials processing plant that processes various types of metal building materials. I'll mark it on the map for you later. Go and see if you can find what you need. As for recruiting manpower, we can also provide assistance here. We have a high-powered radio here, originally used for communication with official organizations, but it may no longer be needed. You can take it and establish a radio communication network. I remember its communication range is about 500 kilometers without a wireless network. I'm sorry, Jenna and I aren't professionals in this area and don't know how to use it. You'll have to figure it out yourself." Hearing Dr. Melfa's words, Lyon was overjoyed. The 12 sets of radio communicators he received from the Kings County Police Department only had a communication range of 5 kilometers and could only be used near the same base. Even so, he treasured them and had hardly used them until now. But with this high-powered radio, they might be able to communicate in real time within a 500-kilometer radius. Unfortunately, he didn't understand the technology, and among the people he knew, none were skilled at operating radios or similar devices. And in a post-apocalyptic world where the population had shrunk to less than 1,000th of its original size, finding someone with the relevant expertise was like finding a needle in a haystack. "Thank you, Dr. Melfa. Dr. Jenner, these next few days, you can give me a list of the daily necessities you need, and I'll allocate them from this batch of supplies. Don't mention it. I'll give you the best quality, The two doctors were among the Umbrella Corporation's most valuable assets, and it was worth his effort to ingratiate himself with them. Dr. Melfa smiled slightly and nodded gently, not refusing. "Thank you, Lyon. I'll go back and organize it, and send it to you before dark tonight or tomorrow." "No problem, doctor. I'll be going now." On the way, Lyon thought of the radio again. Of all the characters in the story, it seemed only Eugene had the opportunity to use it. However, finding Eugene, who was currently in another state, was virtually impossible. The plan had to be put on hold for the time being. Lyon was somewhat frustrated. Zuina remembered another piece of information Dr. Melfa had mentioned. She wondered if the metal processing plant 2 kilometers away might have the materials he needed. Well, since he hadn't finished his work these past few days and didn't have anything major to do, he might as well take this opportunity to spend a day scouting there. After dinner, Lyon didn't generously arrange for his employees to rest in the luxurious private lounge on the 3rd floor. Instead, he temporarily arranged for them to make do in the visitor activity room on the 1st floor. There were sofas, a TV, and even a pool table, an indoor basketball court, and many other recreational facilities, a rather luxurious environment for the survivors at this point. Presumably, no one would dare say anything. Even if they complained privately, he didn't care. He, Lyon Caster, wasn't a saint. Saving others wasn't for some so-called justice or compassion. As the boss of the Umbrella Corporation, he should live in the best houses, eat the finest food, have the hottest and most beautiful women, and enjoy the flattery and service of countless people. Otherwise, what's the point of working so hard to save the world? With this thought in mind, Lyon, accompanied by his beautiful assistant Amy, arrived at his private floor. A 2,000 square meter luxurious private space, this was something Lyon could only dream of. Solid wood floors and furniture, leather sofas, upholstered walls, plush carpets, silk curtains, and a gold and crystal chandelier. Although it was merely an office building for receiving guests, its interior decoration was still extremely high-end and luxurious, clearly requiring a great deal of time and money. Lyon was amazed by the luxury and enjoyment of capitalism, but his face remained serenely smiling. He led his assistant on a brief tour, then pointed to a small, luxurious bedroom next to the master bedroom and said to Amy, "Miss Amy, you will have the right to use this room while you are my personal assistant. However, until my personal chef and personal maid arrive, you will be responsible for both of their duties. That means you will be responsible for my meals, the cleanliness of this room, and preparing my daily necessities. I know this period may be quite tiring." He looked at the girl, her mouth slightly open, as if she had turned into a statue, and said with a smile, "But you should know that I am a generous and magnanimous boss. After 1 month, if your work satisfies me, I will promote you to C-level employee. And you will be the first employee in Umbrella Corporation to be promoted." He patted the girl's shoulder, sat down in the luxurious executive chair behind his desk, and turned on his computer. "Don't just stand there like an idiot. Go get all the employee files from my car, and the inventory list you compiled. We need to establish a reasonable internal currency supply and demand system within 3 days. Aren't you an economics student? This should be your forte." Amy turned her head blankly, staring at her heartless boss. His once charming, handsome face now seemed like a demon. She shuddered as if waking from a dream. It was terrifying. She had worked so hard these past few days, suffering from sleep deprivation for several nights, working for him, and this guy still wanted to give her 3 more jobs. This bastard should be hung from a lamppost. Amy clenched her fists. "Is there a problem, Miss Amy?" The assistant trembled slightly, then silently turned and walked towards the stairs, weakly replying, "Yes, boss, I'll go right now." Indeed, the working class is forever destined to be exploited. Chapter 17 Government Affairs. After reviewing all the materials, evening had arrived without them realizing it. Amy, dressed in a black stockings, short skirt, and blouse, the typical secretary look, and seemingly wearing light makeup, had a pair of small, gold-rimmed glasses framing her smooth, white face. She exuded a restrained, alluring charm. Carrying a tray, she approached Lyon, bowing slightly, revealing a glimpse of her white chest. "Boss, here's your iced cola and midnight snack." The tray held a large glass of iced cola and a large plate of richly flavorful red wine, braised beef. Knowing her boss's appetite, she knew this plate of beef, excluding the broth and side dishes, weighed a full 5 kilograms. Lyon took the Coke, tilted his head back, and downed half of it in one gulp. He watched as his secretary, leaning close to him, gently placed a large plate of beef on the table. Her alluring figure rippled slightly before him, and he couldn't help but glance at her a few more times. He looked up and saw Amy's slightly reddened earlobes, and chuckled inwardly, instantly understanding the girl's little scheme. Trying to seduce your boss, you little vixen. He unexpectedly reached out and wrapped his arm around the girl's slender waist, pulling her into his embrace. Amidst Amy's gasp, Lyon whispered in her ear, "Beautiful lady, now is not the time. Let's wait until we're both free, then we can savor the beautiful moments between a man and a woman." His action was swift and decisive. He released Amy, who struggled slightly, and flashed a charmingly wicked grin at her playful eye roll. "I'm a top-tier male god now. A casual flirtation can make any girl blush and her heart race. Just wait, little beauty, once I'm done with this busy period, I'll find a chance to devour you." His mind was in turmoil, but he still managed a gentle smile and said softly, "Amy, it's already 10 o'clock. Go to sleep first. Tomorrow, you have to get up early to prepare breakfast for me. You also have a lot of work during the day, so don't overwork yourself. I'm different from you." "I can sleep in." The girl thought for a moment, nodded slightly, and gave a sweet smile, saying, "Okay, boss, I'll go rest now." Watching the girl's departing figure, her shapely figure encased in a black stocking skirt, Lyon felt a slight surge of heat. Fortunately, he had good self-control and quickly calmed himself, focusing his attention on the work at hand. He was currently considering the most important systems of the Umbrella Corporation, the salary system and the material system. The salary system determined the status of the three departments within the company, influenced employees' job preferences, and influenced their enthusiasm for their work. This was a job that required careful management. Currently, all employees were roughly divided into 5 categories: soldiers, technicians, civil servants, laborers, and the elderly, weak, sick, and disabled. In his heart, the most important thing was undoubtedly the warriors. They were the most crucial personnel for survival in the post-apocalyptic world, killing zombies, scavenging resources, fighting off raiders, and protecting the camp. Without warriors, you would be unable to move an inch in this world, becoming easy prey, enslaved, violated, and killed. This was a job where death was always a possibility, so their pay should be extremely high, high enough to make ordinary people envious. Otherwise, few would be willing to risk their lives to participate in the battle. Lyon took out a pen and wrote a 3 next to warrior. If the base salary was 1, then a warrior's salary should be around 3. This level would make ordinary people both envious and not to the point of jealousy or hatred. It's like working in a factory, screwing in screws, earning 3,500 yuan a month. Meanwhile, soldiers in other countries risk their lives to protect their homes, earning 10,000 yuan a month. Would you be envious or jealous? Next were the technicians, or skilled workers. Lyon wrote a 2 next to skilled workers. The importance of this profession was clear to any intelligent person. Skilled workers determine the technological capabilities, production capacity, and future development of your camp. This isn't like being a warrior, where a surge of passion is all it takes to fight. To be considered a skilled worker, one must possess 10 or 20 years of work experience or specialized knowledge. Humanity is now less than 1,000th of what it used to be. Every skilled worker is a treasure for all humanity, a legacy of the old era. Next are the laborers, the ordinary support staff. There's not much to say. Lyon wrote a 1 next to the laborers. They are the mainstream of productivity, the foundation of human society. While they don't have the greatest power or the strongest force, they are the most numerous group, largely determining the atmosphere of the entire organization. If they are happy, the organization is vibrant. If they are miserable, the organization becomes lifeless and declines. Lyon thought for a moment, then wrote 1.5 next to civil servants and 0.3 next to the elderly, weak, sick, and disabled. In his mind, civil servants serve the public, serve him as the company owner, and act as a lubricant, ensuring the smooth operation of the organization. A little ability and a little privilege, this kind of balanced treatment is just right. Of course, only those loyal to him can obtain this easy work. The elderly, the infirm, and the disabled represent the bottom line for this positive human organization. He can't afford to spend exorbitant sums supporting these worthless individuals, but he must ensure their basic living standards, such as pensions or alimony, at 1/3 of an ordinary worker's wage. This level, neither too high nor too low, should strengthen everyone's loyalty and goodwill towards the organization. Having considered the salary distribution for each profession, Lyon wrote the letters A, B, C, D, and E on a piece of paper. He then added 5 employee levels after each letter: department head, middle manager, team leader, regular employee, and trainee. After much deliberation, Lyon set the salary at 1 for regular employees, 0.5 for trainees, 3 for team leaders, 10 for middle managers, and 30 for department heads. In reality, this translates to 5,000 for regular employees, 15,000 for team leaders, 50,000 for middle managers, and 150,000 for department heads. Thinking about the final 150,000 figure, Lyon frowned slightly, feeling a pang of heartache. He then erased the 30 after department head and changed it to 20. Lyon told himself, "I'm not being stingy. As a whole, I can't let the gap between rich and poor become too large, as that could easily lead to class conflict. I'm doing this for the future of humanity." After a few minutes of self-hypnosis, he set a base salary for all employees, with adjustments made later based on each employee's performance or loyalty, increasing or decreasing by about 20%. Having considered the salary issue, the next, more important, was the issue of supplies. Lyon took out the supply list compiled by Amy, densely filled with thousands of different items and quantities. Due to time constraints and manpower shortages, the 3 ladies hadn't done a very detailed statistical analysis or categorization. He glanced at it and felt a slight chill run down his spine. Suddenly, something occurred to him. He took the supply list to the fax machine next to him, opened the cover, and scanned all the documents. Then, Lyon softly called out to the computer, "Red Queen, upload this file to the computer and create a separate document." 2 seconds later, a clear female voice came from the speakers under the computer. "The document is complete, Master." Just as expected, Lyon was excited, but a happy smile crept across his face. He sat back in his executive chair, opened the document, and quickly scanned it. He then spoke to the computer, "Red Queen, divide the list in the document into 5 categories: food, tools, medicine, materials, and daily necessities, and arrange them by quantity." "Yes, Master." After 2 seconds, the text on the screen flickered for a few seconds, then began to rearrange itself, becoming a brand new, neat document. Lyon wasn't satisfied yet. He tentatively gave Red Queen a command: "Red Queen, add pictures and detailed descriptions, as well as the actual prices, to the list of supplies in the document." This time, the ethereal female voice paused for a full 10 seconds before resuming. "Ding, command error, Master. Unable to connect to wireless network. Insufficient data. Unable to complete your command." Chapter 18 Steel Processing Plant. 2 days later, June 17th. After 2 days of working through piles of documents, Lyon felt his inspiration had completely dried up, and he could no longer think straight. Fortunately, his hard work had yielded considerable results. With the help of the intelligent system Red Queen, he had entered all the employees' salaries and benefits, as well as the selling prices of all materials, into the computer, completing the initial setup. Once all the employees had gathered at the base, he would announce the official implementation of this policy. He could also gradually refine the system based on its actual effects. To change his mood and to gather intelligence on the area near the CDC, Lyon enjoyed a special breakfast prepared for him by Amy and then drove off in his blue SUV. His main task for the day was to go to the metal building materials processing plant marked by Dr. Melfa to see if there was anything useful there. The processing plant was about 2 kilometers from the CDC. Normally, it would only take about 5 minutes to drive there, but now the roads were severely congested, with many roads blocked by abandoned vehicles. Lyon changed routes 3 times, and it took him nearly half an hour to finally reach the processing plant. Just as the doctor had said, this was a small processing plant, occupying only about 2,000 square meters. In the center of the factory was a rectangular workshop of over 1,000 square meters, about 10 meters high, with only 1 story. A short distance to the right of the workshop were 5 2-story blue warehouses made of sheet metal, likely storage facilities. Finally, a more conspicuous building was a 2-story office building near the factory gate. All these buildings were currently closed, making it impossible to see their interiors from the outside. Lyon parked his sports car about 100 meters away in a corner, quietly bypassing the factory gate surrounded by a dozen zombies, and climbed over a wall. The factory was quiet, only 3 or 4 zombies were visible wandering outside the buildings. Lyon didn't scout the workshops and warehouses first. Those 2 gates were closed, their situation unclear, and they weren't a priority for investigation. He pressed himself against the inner wall, held his breath, and moved stealthily towards the gate from where he had climbed over the wall. 2 minutes later, Lyon stealthily approached the factory gate. He noticed that the gate was a fence-like structure made of dozens of upright steel pipes welded side by side, with only about 10 centimeters between the pipes, making it impossible for either humans or zombies to pass through. The gate was half open, not fully closed, with a gap large enough for 3 zombies to walk side by side. Lyon pressed himself against the inner wall, a pang of regret in his heart. He hadn't brought one of those toys that could play music aloud. Otherwise, he could have used it to distract the zombies. Suddenly, he noticed a nearly new Czech sedan about 10 meters from the gate. On a whim, Lyon pulled out his silenced pistol, aimed it for 3 seconds, and, thud, the windshield of the Czech sedan shattered, and a piercing alarm blared. This immediately attracted the attention of the zombies at the nearby gate. They limped towards the still-sounding car, their rotting bodies churning. Once the zombies had moved a little further away, Lyon chuckled, strode to the factory gate, pulled the metal door, slammed it shut, and bolted it in, locking all the zombies outside. After closing the gate, Lyon didn't leave. He drew the military dagger strapped to his thigh and shouted mockingly at the horde of zombies outside, "You little bastards, Grandpa's here, come and bite me." As it turned out, a human voice attracted the zombies more than a car siren. After Lyon shouted at them several times, all the zombies focused on him, swaying and staggering as they surrounded him again. Lyon crossed his arms and watched quietly until the zombies were huddled together, desperately squeezing their heads into the gaps between the steel pipes. Only then did he leisurely walk up to the zombies, dagger in hand, and hold the dagger level with the zombie's eye socket through the sturdy factory gate. With a plop, it went in. With a whoosh, it came out. Foul-smelling blood splattered everywhere, and with a thud, a zombie lost its vitality. Remembering how Rick and his friends killed zombies in prison the same way, so simple, like screwing in a screw in a factory, Lyon chuckled inwardly, muttering a mocking remark, but his hands moved with lightning speed. "Let me hear what's going on in your brains." Thud. Splash. 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 Splatter. Splash. In just 2 minutes, with almost no exertion, these dozen or so zombies were dead. Such a good method, why didn't Rick and his friends perfect it? Why risk their lives when they could kill zombies so easily? Looking at the zombies scattered on the ground, many valuable ideas flashed through Lyon's mind. Lyon opened the factory gate, dragging the zombies aside to prevent their corpses from hindering his subsequent actions. He found a wooden stick and slowly walked to the factory gate in the center. The door wasn't locked, it was simply closed slightly. To open it, one could only push it from the outside or pull it from the inside. Interesting, Lyon thought to himself, is this taking advantage of the zombies' lack of intelligence to pull doors? He gently pushed the door open. The instant he opened it, he saw 3 or 4 enormous stamping and cutting machines and dozens of zombies beside them. These zombies wore hard hats and blue worker uniforms. They had forgotten all memories and instincts, simply wandering blindly in their workplace. Lyon couldn't see the exact number clearly from outside, but there were probably about 30. Hearing the door open, they immediately sensed it, turning dozens of rotting eyes towards the figure standing at the door. Hiss. Oh. As if seeing the most delicious food in an instant, these zombies instantly regained their vitality from their blind state. They all thrashed about and charged towards Lyon at top speed. Sigh, more screw tapping. Facing dozens of charging zombies, Lyon felt no pressure. He walked and stopped, maintaining a distance of about 30 meters from the zombies, guiding them slowly towards the factory gate. Using the same trick, he ran to the gate, reached in, and plugged in the bolts, locking the monsters firmly inside the factory. Lyon crossed his arms, humming a tune, watching with amusement as dozens of zombies crowded and filled the metal gate. They stretched out their hands, opened their mouths, their eyes fixed on the living man before them, their expressions filled with longing. Haha, demons just crawled out of hell. Lyon lit a cigar, took a couple of puffs, and then pulled the dagger from his thigh. Thud. Clatter. Thud. Clatter. Thud. Clatter. Half an hour later, Lyon used this method to clear out all the zombies from the factory. Over 80 corpses were piled up like a small mountain outside the factory gate. If you hadn't seen it with your own eyes, Few would believe that these monsters were all killed by one person. After the battle, Lyon, with a touch of pride, planned to stroll around the factory and take stock of his spoils. Suddenly, he clapped his hands, remembering something. A hero returning victorious shouldn't be without beautiful women and his underlings cheering him on, right? Thinking this, Lyon returned to his SUV, took out a radio, turned it on, and said, "Hey, Amy, this is your boss. Take a few men and a truck and come over here right now. I need you for a mission. Follow the route I tell you, hurry up, and remember to bring me an ice-cold Coke and a new shirt." Chapter 19 Glenn's Request. Did the boss kill them all by himself? There must have been at least 100, that's terrifying. Sigh, I probably couldn't even beat one of them. Seeing their rotting bodies makes my legs weak. Didn't I hear Mr. Caster used to be a doctor? Are doctors really that strong? The boss must know Chinese kung fu, right? Listening to the whispers of the movers, and enjoying the adoring look on Amy's face as she attentively served him, Lyon leaned back in his Lamborghini, a glass of iced cola in hand, feeling utterly delighted. Indeed, showing off requires an audience to truly enjoy it. No matter how well you do alone, if others don't see your achievements, no one will truly acknowledge you. Lyon patted Amy's bottom and said with a mischievous grin, "Stop daydreaming, get ready to work. I've cleaned this place up. Just close the gate before you go in and out, and there won't be any danger. We can't use the large machinery in the factory for now. I've already checked the warehouse. It mainly produces different types of metal wire, metal pipes, metal plates, and metal frames. There's a lot, so we won't move it all back to base yet." Lyon pondered for a few seconds, then said, "Okay, prioritize sending back 2 truckloads of metal wire. We'll need it soon. Oh, and there's an employee canteen over at the office building. It stores some supplies. Don't forget to bring them back." Amy blushed and nodded, asking curiously, "Boss, what do you need that metal wire for?" Lyon kept her in suspense, saying vaguely, "I can't be sure if it will succeed, but if it does, it will become a trump card against the zombies." Separation line. 5 days later, June 20th. After 7 days, the relocation of supplies along Glory Avenue was successfully completed. Lyon acquired a massive amount of supplies, including various medical supplies and daily necessities. Food alone comprised approximately 120 tons of staple grains, 20 tons of various canned and vacuum-packed foods, 3 tons of luxury snacks such as chocolates and candies, tens of thousands of bottles of beer, thousands of bottles of red and white wine, and thousands of cartons of cigarettes. The sheer volume and variety of supplies, exceeding 1,000 tons, filled roughly 1/20th of the 6,000 square meter parking lot. In addition to these smaller items, Lyon also acquired 50 tons of diesel fuel, over 80 cars and sports cars of various types, and hundreds of tons of construction materials that would be needed immediately. It was truly an epic victory. Of course, Lyon was a generous and honest boss. That evening, he hosted a lively celebration banquet in the first-floor cafeteria, providing the best drinks and food free of charge. He also kept his promise, allowing every veteran employee of the Umbrella Corporation present to choose a car they liked and receive enough supplies to fill it. Everyone was excited and happy. It was arguably the happiest night they'd had since the disaster. At the end of the banquet, Lyon announced that starting the next day, the Umbrella Corporation would officially implement a contribution point system. With real-world currency completely ineffective, every employee would earn contribution points by working for the Umbrella Corporation. This would be their salary. These contribution points could be used to exchange for desired living supplies. Contribution points were essentially another form of currency. They could be inherited, traded, and gifted. The number of contribution points one had would determine their quality of life within the Umbrella Corporation. That night, after the banquet, Lyon returned to his private floor. He sat in his executive chair, just about to take a nap, when Amy quickly approached him with a notebook. "Boss, it's not time to rest yet. There are still a few things you need to decide today." Lyon nodded, squinting, and patted his shoulder. Amy immediately understood, put down her notebook, and went behind him, gently massaging him. Smelling the pleasant perfume on the girl, Lyon asked, "What is it?" Amy bent down slightly and whispered in Leon's ear, "Boss, there are 3 things. First, starting tomorrow, the contribution point system will be implemented. You must assign someone to manage our contribution point exchange point. This is a rather tedious but very important position. They will manage the inflow and outflow of a large amount of supplies and will be involved in the use of most people's contribution points. You'd better choose an honest and trustworthy person to manage it. Second, the transfer mission on Glory Avenue has been completed. Next, you need to arrange the work for our logistics staff. The base is in dire need of rebuilding, and we need to make good use of every bit of productivity. Lyon nodded secretly, thinking to himself, this little secretary, Amy, is really capable. Not only is she diligent and hardworking, but she's also smart and considerate. Since taking office, no matter what work I assign her, she completes it flawlessly. She's practically a perfect leak, a metaphor for someone easily exploited. No wonder she's a top student from the University of Chicago. What's the other thing, Mr. Glenn needs to speak with you. When I went upstairs just now, he asked me to convey that he has a request for you. Lyon was slightly surprised. He hadn't guessed what Glenn wanted to talk to him about. He nodded slightly and said, leave the contribution point exchange to Ms. Quinn. She was one of our earliest internal staff, and she's very conscientious and responsible. I've seen it in her eyes. You can tell her to come see me tomorrow morning. I'll talk to her in person. As for the second point, don't worry. We have a mountain of work piling up for a long time to come. We'll only be short-staffed, not idle. Currently, our most urgent task is to renovate the base and build houses for our employees. It's unacceptable for everyone to live in tents all the time. Tomorrow, let everyone rest for the morning. Find the employee with the most renovation experience and bring them to me. I'll arrange the short-term renovation work, and you'll be in charge. Yes, boss. Should I go and call Mr. Glenn over now? Hearing that she was about to become a female foreman, Amy felt no excitement. She'd already worked as a cook, maid, and warehouse keeper. What was a foreman's job compared to that? She was already somewhat used to it. She wasn't surprised what job she did when her boss felt like it. Okay, go ahead. Also, tell your sister to come see me tomorrow morning. She also has new work to do. Okay, boss. I'll take my leave now. A few minutes later, the Korean-American young man, Glenn, walked somewhat nervously into Lyon's office. Lyon held this kind, loyal, and reliable young man in high regard. He was one of his favorite characters from his previous life. He politely invited Glenn to sit down, a warm smile on his face, and asked, Mr. Glenn, what brings you here? Glenn awkwardly touched his cheek, opened his mouth several times, and finally took a deep breath before saying, Boss, I have a favor to ask you. Lyon smiled and nodded, gesturing for him to continue. Do you remember those people at the ore plant camp? Hearing this, Lyon guessed Glenn's request and said with feigned emotion, Of course, Officer Sheng and I knew each other before the disaster. Unfortunately, they refused my invitation that time. Glenn's face became even more embarrassed. He touched his nose and said, I spent some time with them. They are all very good people. That time, they didn't accept your invitation because they didn't know you. I want to ask you to give them another chance, to let me persuade them. This time, they will definitely be willing to join our company. Lyon asked non-committally, Is this your own idea, Mr. Glenn? Glenn nodded slightly and said, I was just thinking that it's so dangerous outside. They must be having a very hard time. They are all good people and shouldn't die out there like that. Our umbrella corporation is short-staffed right now. Perhaps we can help them. Lyon stared at Glenn for a few seconds, seeing only sincerity and kindness in the young man's eyes. He nodded slightly and said, Yes, Mr. Glenn. I've said it before, our umbrella corporation is an organization established to protect all of humanity. Anyone with a kind heart and a willingness to dedicate themselves to the future of humanity can become our comrade. Here's what we'll do. You can leave tomorrow. I'll provide a truck, and Daryl will go with you. My only requirement is that you both be careful. You are both capable individuals who will become my invaluable assistants in the future. You shouldn't suffer any harm because of something so trivial. Hearing his boss Lyon's words, Glenn was filled with gratitude and excitement. He nodded emphatically. I understand, boss. Please rest assured. Chapter 20 Payday. After Glenn left, Lyon fell into thought. He wasn't worried about bringing Sheng and causing any trouble. Although Sheng was a selfish person who would sacrifice others for his own benefit, there were plenty of people like that in the world, nothing unusual. He was just considering whether he should go and rescue Rick. It was June 20th, and there were about 20 days left until Rick woke up in the story. When he first transmigrated, he was in a rush to get to the CDC and didn't have time to check on Rick's condition at the hospital. Now he had the time, and perhaps he should rescue this SR-level character, after all, one of his favorite characters in the story. He could work with his good brother Sheng to give Carl a safe and stable childhood. This time, he would have Rick, Sheng, and Lori have an open and honest talk. It was just an understandable emotional dispute. If they could open up and talk things out, and if a few kind-hearted people could offer some advice and guidance, there wouldn't be any irreconcilable conflict that escalated to the point of brothers turning against each other. Thinking of Rick, Lyon realized something else, something very important. His recruitment plan had a major problem. Since recruiting over 40 people from the nursing home and quarry camps, he had become arrogant, focusing on those so-called large camps, hoping to rise to the top overnight. But now, most survivors had already fled the zombie-infested city, wandering the countryside seeking survival. There were very few survivors or groups capable of surviving alone in the city. He should have focused on the towns and villages outside the city, or other places with fewer zombies. Thinking about finding more survivors, Lyon immediately perked up. He took out a map of the area surrounding Atlanta from his drawer and began searching on this rudimentary map. It's embarrassing, really. Since the advent of the smartphone era, physical books have gradually disappeared. Almost all information can be found online. With the apocalypse, cell phone signals are dead, and he can't even find a detailed map. The elementary school map he has, marked only with landmarks like the government, police station, and library, was something he painstakingly found in a residential building. If he could get a detailed map now, like some navigation app, marked with all the shops, he'd trade 10 tons of food for it. While making notes on the map and pondering the problem, a recruitment plan gradually took shape in Lyon's mind. The next day, June 21st. For the other survivors, it was an ordinary day, but for the Umbrella Corporation employees, it was a very special day, their first payday. In the temporary logistics office on the first floor, more than 30 Umbrella Corporation employees stood in a long queue. Daryl stood expressionless at the end of the queue, quietly watching the number of people ahead of him dwindle, a feeling he couldn't quite describe welling up inside him. After being expelled from high school for fighting, he drifted the streets with more, never holding a proper job, and never before queuing up for wages like this. In the past, he was a despised hoodlum, constantly getting into fights, engaging in illegal and shady activities, often ending up penniless and forced to hunt wild animals in the forest. His past life wasn't enjoyable. In fact, the post-apocalyptic lifestyle made him feel much better. He actually quite liked this team life, where everyone was united. Without discrimination, conflict, or struggle, all fighting for a common goal. They helped each other, supported each other, relied on each other, and fought together, like family. At the front of the line, Amy, dressed in a gray women's suit and wearing round-framed glasses, sat behind a red desk, occasionally exchanging a few words with someone at the front of the line, then handing them 2 thin booklets. Daryl was soon the group down to just himself. He saw his brother, Moore, carrying the 2 booklets, heading excitedly towards the basement, surrounded by several of his men. Moore was shouting, "Today it's my treat. I'll buy you all drinks," and seemed genuinely happy. Mr. Daryl, here are your pay stub and merchandise exchange booklet. Please take them. Daryl took the booklet, nodded to the girl named Amy, and said, "Thank you." Amy smiled sweetly and tilted her head, saying, "You're welcome, Mr. Daryl. You and Mr. Glenn are leaving for the quarry camp at noon. You can use this time to exchange for some supplies at the warehouse for use on the road. It's a bit hot outside now, so exchanging for some chilled cola or beer would be a good choice. The price isn't expensive either, only 5 contribution points per bottle. Moreover, since you and Mr. Glenn are on an outward mission, according to regulations, you receive a food allowance of 20 contribution points per day." Daryl was a little confused. He had just woken up today and was told to come here to queue. He only knew that today was payday and didn't know the other details. He didn't voice his doubts, but instead said somewhat awkwardly, "Thank you for your suggestion, I'll consider it." He knew that although the girl in front of him looked young, she was Mr. Lyon's deputy, wielding considerable power within the company and responsible for almost all work arrangements. She was extremely busy. Daryl didn't want to waste the girl's time. He returned to his tent and reached for the first booklet, titled Employee Handbook. Page 1 featured his photo, below which read, "Daryl Dixon, male, D-level combatant, belonging to the security department, deputy leader of the 1st Combat Team. Page 2 contained only one line of small print, dates, June 13th to 19th, weekly salary, 2,300 contribution points. Daryl flipped through it several times, finding that the handbook only had these 2 pages. Somewhat resigned, he put the first handbook in his pocket and took out the second, titled Supply Exchange Handbook. He opened it to the first page, which was surprisingly a table of contents. It meticulously divided all supplies into 8 categories, indicating which supply was on which page of each category. Daryl carefully examined the manual. The contents were very detailed, not only providing pictures for each item but also briefly describing its function and value, and indicating the contribution points required to exchange for it. Daryl considered his weekly wage of 2,300 points and realized it was quite high. He could buy things worth about a month's salary for an average person. The manual was filled with a wide variety of items, and the prices weren't too expensive. Even a somewhat reclusive man like him found some things quite interesting. Since I still have time, why not take a look? Chapter 21 Combat Training. June 20th, afternoon. Lyon led his combat team to assemble in the small square outside the CDC. All personnel assemble, prepare for a training mission. Besides Glenn and Daryl, who were out on a mission, there were T-Boy and Moore, plus Aggie and his 6 young men from the nursing home camp, a total of 9 people, the entire security department of Umbrella Corporation. At this moment, everyone was wearing a set of heavy black full-body armor, modified from motorcycle leather jackets and pants, with iron-plated leather panels. 6 men carried metal spears made from steel pipes and daggers, while 3 carried police riot shields and a gleaming bayonet, standing in groups of 3. This leather armor was developed by 5 technicians in the engineering department. Lyon had him name it Black Bear Armor 1.0. It used existing materials in the warehouse, imitating ancient knights' leather armor. Multiple layers of thick cowhide were used for reinforcement, with metal plates sewn into the joints. It was paired with copper wire gloves, metal boots, steel shoulder pads, and a one-piece helmet modified from a motorcycle helmet. Weighing 9 kilograms, it effectively protected against slashes and piercings from melee weapons, and of course, was impervious to the most primal scratches and bites of zombies. This was something Lyon found very strange in his previous life. The characters in the story were clearly educated, cultured people, yet they were foolish enough to fight zombies who could only use their teeth and nails with their bare flesh. Could they have imitated ancient warriors and gotten themselves a suit of armor? Even without armor, wearing several layers of high-quality leather clothing could have protected them from many zombie bites. With teeth alone, could they possibly bite through steel plates or thick leather? Lyon thought to himself. It's safe to say the scriptwriters were brain dead, making everyone's IQ drop to 0. The combat team members were very satisfied with the Black Bear armor named by Lyon, feeling that having a wise leader was far better than fighting alone. With this equipment, their survival rate against zombies increased by at least 90%. Due to limited ammunition, the survivors had to resort to the most primitive melee weapons to deal with the zombies. Even with Lyon's vast wealth, there wasn't enough ammunition to supply the combat team for daily use. Thus, a training mission was born. The training mission involved targeting a small number of zombies, with multiple people cooperating to train combat skills and teamwork. This was also the security department's first training mission, and to be on the safe side, Lyon decided to personally lead the operation, protecting his men. A few days earlier, he had sent Glenn to thoroughly scout all buildings within a 3-kilometer radius of the CDC, creating a simple map. After much investigation, they found a suitable target, a private apartment building called Maple Leaf Apartments. The area was a real estate rental project operated by a real estate company, providing high-quality private villas for the workers in this industrial zone. It comprised approximately 80 small villas, all in a beautiful, detached setting, eliminating the risk of overcrowding and sudden encounters with large numbers of zombies. This was also Lyon's future target. Once he expanded his territory here, this villa complex could serve as a very practical place to live. It was perfect for combat missions aimed at training. Lyon got into his sports car and gave the order over the walkie-talkie. Target, Maple Leaf Apartments. Everyone get in, prepare to move out. Behind him, his team members, in groups of 3, climbed into 3 medium-sized pickup trucks and responded to his command. Yes, sir. 10 minutes later, all 4 vehicles arrived at a villa complex called Maple Leaf Apartments. Lyon got out first, carrying a brand new composite metal crossbow, and looked around. He saw 8 zombies scattered around the apartment gate 100 meters away, seemingly having heard the vehicles, and were staggering towards them. Lyon thought for a moment, put down his crossbow, beckoned to AG beside him, took a metal spear from him, and said to the combatants around him, "A spear is an excellent polyarm. It can accurately pierce the heads of zombies, push them away and provide us with a safe distance, and in critical moments, it can also be used as a throwing weapon to kill enemies with a single blow. Follow me, let's see how to use a spear." Lyon held a spear, practiced a few spear-wielding postures he remembered, and walked steadily towards the zombie horde. His gaze was calm, without a trace of emotion. Facing enemies who far outnumbered him, he felt no fear, and had a strange feeling of having everything under control. Having been in this world for more than 10 days, Lyon gradually realized that the special energy within him not only provided him with strong physical attributes, but also provided him with an invisible and intangible powerful force, combat intelligence that greatly influenced his combat effectiveness, also known as combat instinct. Any weapon, any enemy, after observing it for a while and getting used to its feel, his mind would automatically simulate numerous ways to use that weapon and techniques to deal with that enemy. It wasn't an illusion, it was this very feeling that transformed him from a nerdy executive in his previous life into the powerful warrior admired by many in just over 10 days. His combat instincts allowed him to gradually become adept at combat, which was initially completely unfamiliar to him. Like the spear in his hand, after only a few light swings in a few dozen seconds, he felt incredibly familiar with the weapon, knowing how to use it and wield it, like a seasoned veteran. Scenes of martial arts masters wielding spears from various movies flashed through his mind. The members of the combat team clearly had great confidence in their boss's fighting ability. They held their breath, silently following behind him from a distance of several meters, carefully observing his movements. When the fastest zombie entered within 2 meters of Lyon, following his instincts, he gripped the spear's end tightly with his left hand, tucking it under his ribs, using it as a fulcrum, and forcefully swept his right hand horizontally. The sharp spearhead drew an arc, slicing through the zombie's skull in a single stroke, the force spraying out white brain matter. Lyon raised his right hand, swung his left, and the spearhead, swishing away the blood, miraculously spun a half arc and returned to its original position. Observing the location of the second zombie, he didn't stop, stepping forward with his right foot, slightly bending his left leg, and thrusting forward with both hands, the spearhead propelling him like a bullet through the second zombie's forehead. In this way, Lyon moved with perfect coordination, his arms dancing wildly, the sharp metal spear like a dancing serpent, stabbing, thrusting, sweeping, and smashing, each strike accurately hitting the zombie's head, shattering their brains, and severing all their life force. When Lyon calmly retrieved the spear, squinting as he savored the battle, 8 corpses with pierced heads lay before him. "That's incredible," I suddenly felt. "I'm awesome." The combat team members behind them were stunned. They had never underestimated their boss's fighting prowess. After all, not long ago, he had demonstrated his ability to single-handedly kill 30 zombies. But they hadn't expected that in just 10 days, his fighting ability seemed to have improved even further. They hadn't seen him before, able to withstand an attack from 8 zombies head-on and effortlessly kill them one by one, without the zombies even getting within a meter of him. One member, who had come from a retirement home, stared blankly, muttering with a hint of pride, "I told you long ago, the boss isn't an ordinary person, he knows Chinese Kung Fu." If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Unexpected Gains. Block him with your shield, quick, don't use brute force, tilt your shield, get the angle right, push outwards, yes, now, knock him down, good, that's it, spearman, follow up, pierce their skulls, quick, don't hesitate, see, it's simple, yes. Cooperate, search for the next target, Atlanta, Maple Leaf Apartments. The combat team members worked in groups of 3. One person, holding a shield and bayonet, stood at the front of the line, attracting the zombies' attention and using the shield to control them. The other 2, holding spears, flanked the shield-wielding person, providing precise thrusts for damage. Under Lyon's tutelage, this formation, with 3 people working together, could easily handle 2 or 3 zombies at once. At this moment, the 9 members of the combat team split into 3 teams, standing in front of the villa's gate, forming a battle line, and began clearing each villa one by one. Lyon carried a crossbow in one hand, a machete at his waist, and a small speaker in the other. Bang! Using lock-picking tools, he opened the villa's door lock and kicked it open without hesitation, deliberately letting the loud noise echo inside. He then placed a speaker in the corner below the door, blasting high-energy rock music. Ignoring the music, he stepped back a few paces, observing the movement inside the villa. Only when several rotting figures staggered towards him from different corners did Lyon turn back to the rear of the battle line, crossbow in hand, ready to provide support. In this training mission, he wouldn't directly join the battle, but instead be responsible for luring out the zombies from the villas to hone his underlings' combat skills. The battle was predictable. Each villa typically contained only 4 or 5 zombies, at most 10 facing 9 armored human warriors wielding sharp weapons. They couldn't make a dent. With the sounds of shields striking corpses, spears piercing skulls, and the zombies gradually fading roars, a villa was cleared out within minutes. After clearing each villa, Lyon would have his men enter, thoroughly search every corner, eliminate any potential dangers, and search for resources. Only valuable supplies like food, medicine, and firearms were stored in the pickup truck they had brought. Less important resources would be received later by logistics personnel. Each villa took about 10 minutes to clear, until 3 hours later, when they were about to open the 17th villa. To Lyon's surprise, this villa was locked from the inside. Furthermore, the door was reinforced with many wooden planks, and all the curtains were drawn. Seeing this, he had a suspicion. He pounded on the door, shouting in English, "Is anyone there? Is anyone home? We are rescue workers from Atlanta, please open the door." After 3 minutes of shouting with no response, Lyon, tired of wasting his energy, took a few steps back, his muscles tensing, a strange energy slowly circulating within him. With a low growl, his 1.9-meter tall, strong body slammed into the wooden door like an enraged bear. Bang! A loud crash echoed, the villa door trembled slightly, and the windows beside it creaked. Lyon noticed a tiny crack in the door hinges. Feeling no discomfort, he retreated a dozen steps, stepping onto the road outside the villa. Amidst the horrified stares of his henchmen, he roared again, charging forward like a furious rhinoceros, slamming into the villa door once more. Crack! With a snapping sound, half of the villa's main gate was knocked off its hinges and lay askew to one side, revealing a dimly lit living room inside. Lyon rubbed his aching shoulder, grabbed the detached half of the gate, ripped it off, and tossed it onto the lawn outside. He waved to his henchmen, signaling them to follow, and then took the lead, kicking the wooden planks nailed to the back of the gate before entering the living room. As soon as he entered, Lyon frowned, covering his mouth and nose. A nauseating stench filled the air, not the stench of decay, but the putrid smell of stagnant air and long-accumulated waste. Lyon's thoughts raced, his movements faltering. He quickly retreated from the living room, still covering his nose and mouth. "I'm the boss," he thought. "This dirty work shouldn't be my job. I don't want to spend more than 10 minutes in this stench." Leaving the villa, he waved to his henchmen outside. "There should be survivors here. Go search inside." After thinking for a moment, he added, "Remember to open the windows inside to let in some fresh air." With that, he took off his wire gloves, found a well-ventilated spot to sit, and took out a lighter and cigar from his leather pocket at his back. He lit one, trying to calm his nausea. 6 or 7 minutes later, Lyon saw Moore, his face ashen, carrying a thin, middle-aged white man towards him. TZNAG, their faces also dark, each led a timid, pale-faced child behind them. "Haha, got what you deserved. Being a lucky isn't so easy." Seeing the unconscious middle-aged white man and the 2 children, both under 8 years old, Lyon understood why no one had responded to his calls. A sister, about 8 years old, and a brother, about 5, with round eyes, brown hair, and fair skin. They were very cute. He turned and took several large pieces of chocolate and bottled drinks from the supply truck. He patted their heads, tenderly unwrapped the packaging, and stuffed the high-energy food into their hands. The 2 children stared timidly at Lyon for a while, then glanced back at their unconscious father before slowly reaching out to take the food. They then eagerly began to eat and drink. Lyon pointed to the man laid flat on the lawn and said, "Wake him up first." Moore spat disdainfully to the side. He despised men who locked themselves in their houses, preferring to starve rather than fight. He roughly pulled a water bottle from his belt and poured it over the man's face. Cough. 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 After 7 or 8 seconds, the middle-aged man coughed weakly, groggily opening his eyes and looking around. He tried to prop himself up with his hands but couldn't. He looked up, first at Lyon and the others, then at the children eating beside Lyon, and tears of relief welled in his eyes. Lyon watched the man take a puff of his cigar, toss him a packet of chocolates, and ask casually, "Who are you? Why are you hiding in the house?" The man picked up the chocolates, tore open the wrapper, and wolfed them down in a few bites. His voice was weak as he said, "I'm Professor Amlin from Georgia Tech, the chief engineering consultant for Delta Airlines, a senior electronics engineer, and a senior software engineer. This summer, I planned to take my 2 children on vacation to my hometown of Atlanta, but I never imagined we'd encounter such a disaster. I locked ourselves in the basement of the villa, barely surviving on the few supplies we had, hoping for rescue. But after more than 30 days, no one came to save us. I don't know how many days ago, I gave the children my last water and food, and then I couldn't hold on any longer and passed out, until you rescued me." Hearing the middle-aged man's long list of titles, Lyon's eyes lit up. Although this man looked weak and powerless, not like someone capable of working or fighting, he was indeed a highly educated and skilled intellectual. Getting his hands on him would definitely be worthwhile. He cleared his throat and said in a low voice, "Mr. Amlin, we are not rescue personnel. You've been locked in the house for too long and are unaware of the situation outside. Times have changed. There are no more armies or officials. I am the manager of the Umbrella Corporation. Would you like to hear about our Umbrella Corporation?" Chapter 23: The Severely Injured Lorry. Undoubtedly, in today's world, few could resist the Umbrella Corporation's recruitment, especially a weak programmer with 2 children. Lyon recruited this Georgia Tech professor with a D-level engineering position, a highly educated individual unattainable for ordinary people. His weekly salary of 1,500 contribution points wasn't much, but it was still significantly more generous than that of ordinary support staff. With this newly recruited professor, Lyon and his combat team cleared 3 more villas, demonstrating the fighting prowess and courage of the Umbrella Corporation's combat personnel. During this time, Amlin's expression wasn't good. Lyon learned from their conversation that many of the zombies were his neighbors when they were alive, most being senior employees in nearby factories and companies. From the professor, Lyon learned that Atlanta was one of the top 10 financial centers in the U.S., known as the New Southern Capital, with a diversified economy and hundreds of large companies headquartered there, including Coca-Cola, Home Depot, Delta Airlines, UPS, Holiday Inn, and Southern Bell. Of the top 500 companies in the U.S., 430 have branches in Atlanta. It's also a renowned historical city, cultural capital, and tourist destination in America, boasting numerous museums and large parks. Clearly, this professor knows Atlanta very well, has worked there for many years, enjoys a high social status, and possesses much intelligence unknown to Lyon, coupled with his rare skills. Lyon felt fortunate. He had truly struck gold. If he had arrived a few days later, he might have only found 3 pitiful zombies lurking in the basement. After clearing 20 villas that afternoon, it was 5 p.m. Lyon had no intention of risking his life in the dark, so he and his team, along with Professor Amlin's family and 4 truckloads of supplies, returned to the base. Upon entering the base, Lyon dismissed the team, instructing them to hand over the supplies. His secretary, Amy, appeared out of nowhere, quickly approaching Lyon and skillfully removing his equipment. The girl smiled radiantly, her voice sweet. "Boss, you're back." Lyon nodded, pointing to Professor Amlin's family, and introduced them. "This is Professor Amlin and his 2 children, newly joined Class D employees in the engineering department, senior electronics engineers, senior software programmers, and university professors. This is Ms. Amy, my personal assistant, currently responsible for managing most of the company's affairs." Amy smiled and nodded politely to Professor Amlin, saying, "Welcome to Umbrella Corporation, Professor Amlin." Amlin weakly smiled back, saying, "Hello, Ms. Amy. It's an honor to join a company that strives for all humanity." After a few pleasantries, Lyon instructed Amy, "Take Professor Amlin and his family to complete their onboarding procedures. And while you're at it, arrange accommodation for them. You can give him 2 weeks' salary in advance." "Understood, boss." After instructing Amy, Lyon turned to Amlin and said, "Professor, there's hot water for showers, plenty of food, and a change of clothes here. You and your children should get a good rest tonight. Tomorrow, I'll arrange a time to have a good talk with you, and also arrange your work here." Amlin, holding his child, bowed deeply to Lyon and said, "Thank you, Mr. Caster, you saved me and my family. I will always remember this kindness. May God protect you." At 2 a.m. Lyon was sleeping soundly, his arms around Amy's smooth, delicate body, when suddenly the walkie-talkie on the bedside table crackled. Boss, are you there? This is Glenn. We are about 10 minutes from the base. We have an urgent matter that requires your help." Amy's face still bore traces of tears, seemingly disturbed by the static on the walkie-talkie. She curled up against Lyon's chest like a startled animal before groggily opening her sleepy eyes. Lyon gently kissed her forehead and pulled the luxurious velvet blanket over her fair, jade-like skin. "I have something to take care of, you go to sleep first." Amy shyly pulled the blanket up around her, seemingly remembering the madness of the previous night. She nodded obediently, a little tired, and said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Okay, boss, take care of yourself and get some rest." Lyon, wearing a nightgown, picked up the intercom on the bedside table, walked out of the bedroom, and replied, "This is Lyon Caster." "Glenn, what's wrong on your end?" Glenn's voice was anxious and tired. "Sorry, boss, for waking you so late. We have a Ms. Lori here who has suffered serious external injuries and urgently needs treatment. You're the only doctor I know, so I drove Ms. Lori over from the quarry overnight." Lyon's voice trailed off for several seconds before continuing, "What kind of injuries did this lady suffer, boss?" "Ms. Lori fell from a height of about 10 meters while collecting supplies in the city. She passed out, and a corrosive liquid splashed on her face, causing severe burns. She's still unconscious. Officer Sheng is very anxious. He took me and Carl, the four of us, to our base overnight. Daryl will be here tomorrow with the rest of the camp. We'll be there in 7 or 8 minutes. Please be prepared." Lyon paused for a few seconds, then replied calmly, "Just come from the underground parking lot. I'll be waiting for you at Clinic 1, okay, boss?" "Thank you, Mr. Caster." At the end of the conversation, Sean's hoarse voice came through the walkie-talkie. 10 minutes later, Lyon saw Sean, who had rushed in carrying Lori, and Carl, who was sobbing on Glenn's lap, in the operating room of Clinic Number 1. Lori's eyes were closed, her hair was disheveled, and there were obvious burn marks on her face. Sean's expression was very complicated, showing tension, anxiety, guilt, and heartache. Lyon had Sean lay Lori flat on the hospital bed, and he carefully examined her with a stethoscope. Indeed, as Glenn had described, there were large areas of chemical burns on her face, neck, and chest, a mild concussion, and fractures in her limbs and joints. The most serious injury was to her eyeballs, where most of the nerves had been destroyed by the chemical liquid, leaving them completely damaged and beyond repair. In other words, even if Lori's injuries healed, she would be blind and disfigured. Upon receiving this result, Lyon felt a surge of emotion. The reason this had happened was largely due to the butterfly effect he had created. It wasn't feelings of guilt or remorse, but rather, a strange sense of immersion washed over him. Everything he did seemed to alter the fate of the world, no longer a rigid reflection of the past. Upholding his duty as a doctor, Lyon called Sean and Carl aside and truthfully informed them of Lori's current condition and the consequences of her treatment. Although Sean was in pain, his expression filled with regret and guilt, he gritted his teeth and begged Lyon to treat Lori. Chapter 24 New Leaks. The surgery lasted 3 hours. When Lyon emerged from the operating room, he saw Sean, his eyes bloodshot, gently stroking Carl's head and softly comforting the child. Seeing Lyon, Sean quickly approached and whispered, "Dr. Caster, how is Lori? Is she all right?" Lyon nodded, then touched Carl's tear-streaked face and said, "Her condition is relatively good. She's out of danger, but she'll probably remain unconscious for another 1 to 2 days. When she wakes up depends on Ms. Lori's own will." He gave a detailed explanation of Lori's condition and some instructions for her future recovery, then feigned exhaustion and said, "That's all for now. You can go to the operating room to be with her and rest in her bed. I'll arrange a time to talk to you about the rest." With that, he ignored them and went upstairs to his bedroom, where he cuddled the young woman and continued to nap. He'd worked tirelessly all night, barely fallen asleep before being woken up to work several more hours. The fact that they were willing to talk to him patiently instead of yelling at him was already a testament to his kindness as the boss. Lyon slept until 9 a.m. before Amy gently woke him. Seeing the girl, energetic and attentive, helping him dress and wash up as if nothing had happened. He couldn't help but admire the robust physique of Europeans and Americans. "Boss, do you have any special plans for today?" Lyon picked up a large plate of breakfast Amy had prepared, took a few bites, and shook his head slightly, saying, "Nothing special. Just follow the normal procedure. Arrange it for me." "Yes, boss." The girl didn't seem to take last night's events for granted, but rather treated him, her boss, with the same respect and obedience as always. She got up early this morning and worked diligently and proactively, without any arrogance. This made Lyon think more highly of Amy. The girl took out her usual notebook, turned a page, and said, "You've already arranged 4 things for today. First, interviewing the remaining personnel at the quarry camp. Second, meeting with Professor Amlin for lunch. Third, Mr. Sheng is waiting for you in the operating room. And fourth, the offices on the second floor of the office building have been emptied and are being renovated, and we need your opinion." Lyon nodded, swallowed a large piece of pan-fried fish, drank a glass of yogurt, and said, "Let's arrange it like that. By the way, keep an eye out for anyone at the base who knows how to grow vegetables and crops. In a few days, I'll also go out to find experts in animal husbandry. In the first 2 or 3 years of this disaster, we won't lack food, but after 4 or 5 years, most of the food left over from peacetime will be consumed or rotten and inedible. Without those food reserves, all the survivors in the world will have to rely on growing food to survive, and we must prepare as soon as possible." Amy listened to Lyon's words, fell into thought, and after a few seconds spoke again. "Boss, you're truly visionary. You always think of things others can't. I'll keep an eye out for people with planting skills. But our base is in downtown Atlanta, and it's hard to find suitable land." After finishing his breakfast, Lyon placed his hand on Amy's slender waist, caressed it a few times, then pulled the girl into his arms, inhaling her faint perfume, and said confidently, "We will gradually clear out all the zombies around here and build a massive shelter. Everything you want, we will have, as long as we overcome difficulty step by step. We will become stronger and stronger." Around 10 a.m., while Lyon was instructing the renovation workers on the second floor offices, Amy brought Daryl over and told him that the people from the quarry camp had arrived and were waiting for his interview in the reception hall on the first floor. Facing the soon-to-be new recruit, Lyon was quite enthusiastic. He immediately put down his work, beckoned Amy to join him, and entered the reception room. That's how it is with a boss. You can't waste time. Every minute wasted means your employees earn less money. As soon as Lyon entered the reception hall, he saw several familiar faces: the kind-hearted old man Dale, the yet-to-awakened female warrior Carol, her husband the domestic abuser Edward, and their daughter Sophia. Besides these, there were 7 characters Lyon hadn't seen in the story, a black family of 3 and a white family of 4. Adding Sean, Lori, and Carl, who were still resting in the hospital, there were a total of 14 people present. If you include the 10 he recruited earlier, such as Glenn and Moore, this protagonist's camp provided him with a total of 24 members, truly a protagonist's gift package. Lyon smiled, his expression amiable as he quietly observed everyone in the reception hall. The person in charge of this interview was Andrea, a recruiter for the Umbrella Corporation. Although she had been essentially used as a regular government official so far, as a top lawyer, Andrea possessed considerable talent. "Hello everyone, I'm Andrea, and I'm in charge of this interview process. Before we begin this recruitment, you'll need to review these documents and fill out the final form. I know you have many questions, but after reading this document, many of them will be answered." Andrea took out a dozen bound documents and distributed them to each adult present. Lyon also took one and flipped through it. The first page of the document, in a solemn and serious style, described in detail what kind of organization the Umbrella Corporation was, what kind of power it possessed, what kind of ideology it adhered to, and what kind of goals it would achieve. Page 2 detailed the functions and benefits of the 3 major departments of the Umbrella Corporation, as well as the recruitment conditions for each department. Page 3 explained the relationship between employee levels and contribution points, and what kind of resources contribution points could be exchanged for within the Umbrella Corporation. Page 4 was a detailed form to be filled out, including age, gender, work experience, and all sorts of other information, quite detailed. Lyon looked at the document and felt quite satisfied. Andrea, as expected of a top lawyer, had created an upgraded version of his original recruitment letter. It was clearly much more high-end and formal than the verbal recruitment methods used by other camps. This would showcase his own abilities and boost the confidence of the recruits. The recruitment meeting lasted for 2 hours. As a boss who trusted his subordinates, he quietly observed everyone's performance, silently giving them a score in his mind and calculating how much to pay them later. The recruitment results were somewhat disappointing. Of the 11 people, excluding the 2 children, not a single one was willing to join the security department as combat personnel. There were barely 2 technicians. Old Dale, the car mechanic, and Brom, the construction engineer, who was also the male head of the black family. In the white family of 4, the male head, David, was the head chef of a restaurant, and the female head was a kindergarten teacher. Although they also possessed professional skills, in the current world, they were not qualified to be called technicians, but could only be considered slightly higher-level support staff. However, Lyon was still quite pleased. These were all healthy adults, and no matter what, they were a good source of labor. The base was currently undergoing renovations and was short of manpower. The more they came, the better. After the recruitment was complete, Lyon instructed Andrea to help these people join the Umbrella Corporation and assigned the barrister some miscellaneous tasks. Despite Andrea's disapproving look, he took Amy to lunch with Professor Amrin. Chapter 25 High-End Talents. On the 3rd floor of the base, in Lyon's private reception room, Amy had specially instructed the base's chef to prepare a lavish lunch. Amrin and his 2 children accepted the invitation. Halfway through the meal, both the men were slightly tipsy, and Amy thoughtfully took the children to the adjacent activity room to play. Lyon swirled a glass of red wine a few times, took a sip, and said, "Professor Amlin, after spending a day here, what are your thoughts on our base?" Amlin gave a gentle smile. After a day of rest, he had changed into a clean suit, shaved his stubble, and regained the refined elegance befitting an intellectual. He cleared his throat, his tone calm and measured, with a hint of flattery directed at the powerful, and said, "It's very safe, the conditions are excellent, everyone in the base is very united and hard-working. To find such a safe haven in this apocalyptic world is already a blessing from God. Of course, I thank you even more for your kindness, Mr. Caster. As an ordinary technician, I cannot offer you advice on base construction or the organization's future. However, based on my understanding over this period, I have found a way I can contribute to the organization." Lyon immediately became interested. He could detect the confidence of a professional in Amlin's humble tone. "Please don't hesitate to say, Mr. Amlin, I'm a generous boss, and I'm never stingy with rewards for anyone who makes a contribution," Amlin said with a humble smile. "My research focuses on electronic engineering and software design. I've been in the industry for over 20 years, and I have a broad understanding of these fields. The first thing that comes to mind is our currency payment system. Yesterday, when we were collecting supplies, I noticed that the logistics staff were still using manual record keeping, which is inefficient and prone to errors. I think I can design a proprietary currency management system for the company, a magnetic card payment system, similar to a miniature version of modern banks and supermarkets. All data would be transmitted to a central intelligent computer, requiring only one magnetic card, which would serve as both identification and a bank card for each person. It would be very convenient to use and manage." Lyon's eyes lit up. He felt that such a payment method was befitting a high-class organization like the Umbrella Corporation. He asked with some delight, "What about materials and equipment?" Amlin, sensing the importance placed on him by the organization's leader, felt his confidence increase and replied, "I've already inquired beforehand. Ms. Quinn, who manages the warehouse, has found a large number of blank magnetic cards and corresponding card readers and swipe machines, enough for several hundred people. These are very common office supplies. Once the software is designed and entered into the computer, it will work normally." Lyon was slightly surprised and gave the university professor a meaningful look. So, he had prepared in advance. It seems Professor Amlin is a truly intelligent person, knowing how to demonstrate his abilities to those in power and understanding that valuable people thrive in this world. He nodded slightly and smiled, saying, "Very good, Professor Amlin. Once this is done, I will give your credit. Do you have any other suggestions?" Amlin's smile widened. He carefully chose his tone and continued, "As you know, Mr. Caster, I used to be the chief engineering consultant for Delta Airlines. Atlanta is Delta's headquarters, and I know a lot about Delta, including several huge aircraft fuel depots, private jet hangars, and Delta's various advanced equipment, as well as various supplies for its large workforce. I estimate that the fuel reserves there are over 100,000 tons, and there are nearly 100 brand new, small private jets. 100,000 tons of fuel? And private jets? Lyon's lips curled into a wide grin. He felt his electricity supply for the next few years was secure. Delta Airlines is one of the top-ranked airlines in the United States, known as the busiest airline in the country, with over 4,000 flights daily, 19 airports, hundreds of routes, and providing tens of thousands of jobs in Atlanta. This airline played an irreplaceable role in making Atlanta a transportation hub in the southern United States. If Amlin's intelligence is accurate, his estimated resources are certainly conservative. Lyon was inwardly delighted, but his face showed regret. He said, "Very good, your intelligence is very useful, Professor Amlin. Unfortunately, our current strength is insufficient to breach those large bases surrounded by zombies. However, your intelligence provides a visible path for our future, and I will credit you for it. Do you have any other suggestions?" Amlin's smile remained humble. He coughed lightly and said, "Last year, I worked as a programmer at a military drone production base, designing operating programs for the reconnaissance drones there. It's about 100 kilometers from here. I remember the location. I estimate that there should still be a large number of reconnaissance drones stored there, with few soldiers and a small amount of military equipment. It has most likely fallen by now. If we could obtain them, it would significantly improve our reconnaissance capabilities." Having received another astonishing piece of good news, Lyon was somewhat numb. He maintained his smile and asked again, "Do you have any other suggestions, Professor Amlin? The current satellite communication system is paralyzed. If Mr. Caster can find a high-powered radio or similar radio-transmitting equipment, I am confident that I can build a wide-coverage communication system for the base." Lyon's lips twitched, but he still asked, "Anything else?" Amlin considered for a few seconds and said, "I remember that Georgia Institute of Technology has a complete disaster emergency system. If the survivors handled it properly, it should still be possible to find many survivors now, just over a month later. By the way, if Mr. Caster is willing to go to the Institute of Technology, I hope you can bring back as many books as possible from the library. It is the crystallization of human wisdom and the spark of human revival. We can learn a lot of knowledge there and rebuild human civilization." "Is there anything else you would like to say, Professor?" "No, that's all for now. Time is too short. That's all I can think of. If I think of anything else later, I will let you know as soon as possible." Lyon took a deep breath and looked at the thin middle-aged man in front of him with a slightly admiring gaze, saying, "Professor Amlin, your suggestion is very, very valuable. It is exactly what we need right now, but our strength is limited right now, and we can't accomplish this overnight. We can only do it step by step. You can go back and rest for a few days first, and then join the work." Amlin shook his head silently for a moment and said, "No need to rest, Mr. Caster. I want to start working immediately." While waiting to die in the basement, I thought about many, many things. I've rested for too long. These are critical times, and I need to work harder to contribute to humanity. Lyon silently looked at the university professor for a few moments and said, "All right, Professor Amlin, this afternoon, I will have Amy arrange your work location. You can ask her for any needs you may have. You need to take care of your health. A valuable and good person deserves a better life." End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.